Welcome back to NUIC Football, joined by Logan Swan. I'm your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. Later on the show, we're going to have our returning guests, Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle, to take a look at the IFA action. Right now, we're going to take a look at the NUIC. We're going to take a look at the 11-man action. We're going to take a look at playoff projections once again, as that talk is really starting to heat up. And then on top of that, we're going to start to look at some games that are going to be impactful games to that playoff picture this week. Let's go back and recap week 7 real fast. Logan, what are some games that stood out to you this past week? We had some big ones that kind of changed some of the trajectory that we were already looking at. And I was talking to Steve Susi earlier today, and I was like, one of the biggest surprises was how far the projections go up into Class 4A. I had it at 986. I think he had it at 1,009. 4A hasn't seen enrollments that high since 2010 to 2009 range. So it's incredible, because when you take a look at 1A, 2A, and 3A, those have slid down before he's going higher. And that, you start to see that. I was running my numbers through the whole 256 team field. And right now, I didn't need to have a 4 and 5 team in the playoffs. Now, that does not mean that one does not exist. I did not run through the entire calculation. I just literally threw in the teams that are 4 and 3 right now, with all the teams that are playoff eligible. And I deducted out the 5 teams that are considered playoff eligible in the CPL that are not going to make the playoffs. Because right now, through the 4 divisions, there's 11 CPL teams that are playoff eligible, but only 6 of them can qualify for the playoffs. So deducting those 5 out, I did not need to go into the 3 and 4 teams to pull teams into my projections. And I wanted to get a little bit of confirmation from the Seuss on what he was seeing as well. And he was as perplexed as I was taking a look at that 4A field.
Yeah, it's definitely I know last week I asked him last week how many 4 and 5 teams he had in, and he had 8. So definitely a little bit of change. As far as the 1A, I'm a little surprised it's getting as low as it has at this point, but that's just because there are teams that are winning that you didn't have originally that are now projected in. That can still change. You could still get Newman in 1A. You just need some things to flip. But looking at some games that kind of at least changed the outlook, maybe didn't add a new team in, but changed the outlook. Maroa losing to Olympia 50-36. I'm still perplexed about this, because, I mean, it's just not something I would have thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think anybody
Yeah.
was. I mean, when you go through the Sangamo conference and you start doing score comparisons, this one doesn't pop up on the bingo card at all. And the fact that they gave up 50 points to Olympia, and Olympia is more of a power run style
Yes.
team, speaks a lot to what a power run team could do to a Moreau Forsyth team. Obviously, we saw that last year in the state championship game against Chicago Christian as well. Moreau Forsyth's going to have to do some things to change what they can do. They have another big game this week that itself can change some. It won't change the playoff teams, but it can change the seedings around, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Another single one that came up that I even mentioned to you that I was like, I think this could go the other way potentially was Porta and Athens. I know Athens was originally projected to win, but Porta stolen out with a 22-18 win.
Yeah, that was another big one where, you know, Athens, that they're one of those teams that you want to see do good because they do things the right way all the time, and they get good. They have a great coaching staff. Coach Knox and his staff are phenomenal, and then you take a look at how they handle the program, how their players are within the program, and it really stands out with with respect to that, their game last week, not last week, but the week before with Williamsville, they were in that game in the first half before Williamsville dropped the hammer in the second half. And the only other team that was able to do anything against them to that level was Maroa Forsyth
Marilla.
back in week 1. But then, you do have some other games there that you're like Olympia, for example. Olympia just beat Maroa Forsyth. Athens beat Olympia by a touchdown and a field goal. Basically, they won by 9 points. It's so hard to lay a finger on it. I mean, when you take a look at ratings, and me and you have discussed this off air, but you see conferences going up and down, and Sangamo has been on a slight downward trend for the past 2 seasons now, because realistically they have 3 teams that are carrying them, and we watched a North Mac team that was always competitive, always finishing around 5-4, 6-3. They left the conference. Olympia's been in the talk. We've seen Auburn in the state championships. It's been a few years now. 2015 was their last appearance. We watched Williamsville at state a couple times already. Maroa Forsyth's been at state a couple times. Athens was just at state for the first time 2 seasons ago. Pleasant Plains was there in 2016, 17, right around there. I don't know. There's just a lot. And when you see teams like Porta, who have really been bottom dwellers, starting to rise up, that says a lot of things about what they could be doing as well to get themselves back into that talk. But it's just amazing to see, because right now you have 4 teams in that conference at 4-3, and not all 4 of them are making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of not to the same degree as the HOIC, because there's 3 divisions there, but like, we haven't really been able to get a pulse on the heart of Illinois either for a lot of this year. We've picked out El Paso Gridley, we've picked out seemingly Tuscola and Ridgeview Lexington, but when you look at some of their schedules, it wasn't like they all played each other. Tuscola tested themselves in their out of conference for sure. I'm gonna give them credit where it's due. They scheduled an always good program, tough program in PBL, and they played Casey, who's been in our state rankings all year. Tuscola did test themselves, but Leroy got we talked about it. Leroy, and we'll talk about them in a moment. They got the short end of stick where they had to play 3 of what would be the top teams in the HOIC right off the bat after replacing all them guys. And now they're sitting at 4-3 after beating Hayward 14-12 last week, with Forreston and Tuscola looming to give themselves an outside shot.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Tuscola too, they also had a cross-divisional game with Tri-Valley.
Yep.
And Tri-Valley, again, is another team that ever since 2013, Tri-Valley's been in conversation, it seems like every single year, as being a team to watch within the Class 2A field. Rightfully so, because Coach Roop's done an amazing job at Tri-Valley over the last 15 years or whatever it's been now. But yeah, I mean, Heart of Illinois has been tough. The Sangamo has been tough. I mean, you had, like you said, you had your no-ones. Maroa Forsyth and Williamsville are your no-ones. Athens had a bounce-back year from a 2-7 season last year. They've rebounded. Ironically, they have the exact same path that Forreston's done. Forreston was 2-7 last year. They're sitting at 4-3 right now. Athens in the same boat, and they run similar style offenses, similar style programs. It's just kind of funny to see that, because they both have had long tenured success before last season's drop off, and now they're both right back into that picture. And of course, like you said, Leroy, talking about Leroy, they have to host Forreston this week in a big game, and that has a lot of playoff implications on the line. specifically for Forston this week, because Leroy still has another opportunity in week 9. Forston has an opportunity in week 9, but it's going to be a tough one as they look to take on number 1 ranked Stockton. Number 1 ranked in our state rankings, number 1 rated in every rating system you can find, number 2 in the Illinois AP polls. Just want to put clarification on that. But yeah, it's this is where the fun chaos starts to take off, and you'd mentioned it here a couple weeks ago. Wait for week 8 and 9, and week 7 I was not expecting to be the turmoil week, but so far that has been the biggest turmoil week to date, and there's still some big games coming up this week that can definitely turn the picture on the whole playoff party.
Well, and I'll talk about Triopia and Mendon. Obviously, I had brought this scenario up to you because I knew it was a possibility. I didn't know if it would happen, but I brought it up, and I'm just like, there's an outside chance that Mendon could possibly lose their last 3 games, and they lost to Triopia last week. I hate hearing about teams losing their starting quarterback. They lost Sawyer Allen that game. It was a broken left wrist, not his throwing hand, but that obviously impacts them these last 2 weeks. Well, Mendon plays Winchester this week, and Winchester's sitting at 3-4. And the scenario I had brought forth to you was Triopia wins last week, Greenfield beats Winchester. Those two play each other at 4-3, so one of them's guaranteed to get in this week. Winchester plays Mendon. If Winchester beats Mendon, you would assume, based off projections, they're in because they play Beardstown week 9. If Greenfield were to lose to Triopia, then they're sitting at 5-3 against Mendon. Mendon could still theoretically get in. I would probably pick I'd pick Greenfield in that hypothetical. But Triopia would be sitting at 4-4 against, presuming Carrollton 5-3, who would beat Beardstown this week. Triopia could get in. It's just it's a scenario I brought up because I'm like, I looked at it and I was looking at scores and I'm like, I got a feeling something's going to happen here that throws a wrench into it, and that wrench was Triopia winning.
Well, and speaking to your point there, I mean, that's one of the things that we've seen out of the WIVC this year is that the WIVC North Division has been the stronger division of the two. But when you take a look at Triopia's path, having Greenfield Northwestern and Carrollton both on slate, those two teams are proverbially projected to beat Triopia. Yes. But I would say that the battle-tested team right now is Triopia because they've had to go through Brown County. They've had to go through Camp Point Central. So they have that. Plus, they had you guys, Calhoun, in week 1. So theoretically, they've played the 3 top teams coming out of the WIVC. So they have that rugged experience. And, of course, those 3 games were all butt whoopings. But by almost the exact same scores, 42-0, 44-0, 42-8. It'll be interesting to see because we've seen GNW slow Calhoun down. We watched GNW slow down Camp Point Central as well. So one would have to say if they can slow down the 2 undefeated teams in the WIVC, that they should be able to shut out the mid-level teams in the conference.
Yeah. Obviously, I have my picks that I do on the page, on the WIC page, but I plan to pick Greenfield this week. Spoiler alert for everyone, I'm sorry. But I do plan to pick Greenfield. But looking at that Carrollton matchup, like, there's a real scenario with Triopia, and I've talked about this, when you're a 4-4 team in week 9 and you got to get a win, and you're playing a team who's already in or safely in, something along those lines, and that instinct of just, this is it or we're done, takes over, and you find a way. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not claiming it will, but a week 9 matchup between what I presume will be 5-3 Carrollton and a 4-4 Triopia, I find, for WIVC people, extremely intriguing.
Yeah, because that's, like you said, if that were to play out, you're adding another team to the playoff field than what you're already expecting to add, which just gives your area a lot more attention, a lot more focus. And, you go back to 2014, and we've seen the WIVC in the state championship game 5 times now. Now, granted, they brought home one title here recently, and if it weren't for Althoff last season, everybody talks about it all the time. We probably see a sixth WIBC team sitting in that state championship game a couple years back. If, in 2016, if there's not a Decatur St. Teresa sitting unwaived in 1A, we probably see a Calhoun team sitting in the state championship game. And it's always something, and it's ironic because it's like you guys have to always go through a Tuscola, which was so tough for so long, and have sort of fallen off and now revamping back up. Great to see Coach Romine getting Tuscola back to that level because, I mean, hell, even back when I was in high school, Tuscola was tough. And then you take a look at, just some of those other things. It always seems like the southern private schools tend to wreak more havoc than what the northern private school. I mean, last time we've seen a northern private school in Class 1A get anywhere was Aquin, and that was 20 years ago, and that school doesn't even exist anymore. So, and grant that, that's one of the reasons why me personally, I would like to see Newman slide back into 1A. I know there's people that think that Newman should be in 2A. I'm not one of those. When I was in high school, Newman was in 1A. So I'm not objected to playing them. They are a small school. Yes, they're in a big town, but they're in a small school and they have a small enrollment. They are a true small school team. And well, they shouldn't be there because of this and that, and they win a lot of state titles. It's like they've won 6 state titles since 1990.
Calhoun played him in a state title and won.
Yeah, exactly. And that was right when Newman was starting to hit their heyday, because they had 1989 was the first time that they made it far. They got to the quarterfinals. They lost to eventual state champion Orangeville. 1990 they won state. 93 they got there and lost to Calhoun. 94 they got there and won it. 98 they got there and lost. To me personally, I like to see Newman in that mix because, yeah, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they were super tough. The whole Three Rivers was very tough. Them and Morrison were going back and forth like every year. I mean, 2009 it was Morrison, 2010 it was Newman, 2011 it was Morrison, 2013 it was Newman again, and I don't know. It's a lot of fun, and obviously it puts a lot of talking points into our laps that we get to discuss, and then on top of that, you get the people that follow the stuff and they want to start conversing, and then you just got this whole conversation going on, talking about teams from yesteryear and taking a look at programs and where they're at now to where they used to be. And it's one of those things where history always repeats itself type of thing to a degree, but at the same time, we've definitely seen different ebbs and flows throughout the IHSA over the years. And right now we're talking about playoffs once again as we get ready to get into these final 2 weeks. So anyway, go on with the next game that you were looking at.
I was looking at Villa Grove and Sangamon Valley. Again, another team that wasn't projected in. In fact, they were projected to lose this game to a then 1-5 team in Sangamon Valley, 28-14, and Villa Grove won 25-24. Just it adds another team into the playoff. They come out of the Lincoln Prairie, right? That's what I'm thinking
Lincoln
of.
Prairie, yeah.
Yeah, they come out of Lincoln Prairie, and they weren't projected in just because if they lost this game, there's no way they're getting in. They weren't going to beat Arthur or Sullivan. But they beat Sangamon Valley, who they weren't projected to beat, and now Villa Grove is proverbially in at 5-4. And then after that, you have Illini West, who beat Burrow Valley 28-20. And I think we had Illini West projected in, but I think they're in at 5-4.
Yeah, and that's been quite the story there because they were 2-4, I think, if I remember correctly, And people, I remember, because people are like, how do you have them projected in? I'm like, I'm telling you, yeah, they were 2-4, and I had them projected in at 5-4. And people are like, you think Illini West is going to win their next 3 games? And I'm like, yeah, I do, actually. And it'll be tough. I mean, week 9 is going to be a tough opponent in Elmwood Brimfield. Elmwood Brimfield was in the playoffs last year, but so was Illini West. And we watched Illini West kind of do this last year, where they had to make a mad scurry towards the end of the season in order to get themselves into the playoffs. And Elmwood Brimfield last year was 8-1. Uh, and they lost in the second round of the playoffs in Class 2A, and Illini West lost in the first round of the 2A playoffs. So, yeah, I do. I do have Illini West still projected. They did get this win against Bureau Valley, which was much needed. This week they take on a Monmouth United team that they're projected to win, so they'll be sitting at 4-4 going into that Week 9 matchup with Elmwood Brimfield. And when you take a look at that one, Elmwood Brimfield has to win this week against Macomb to get in, because they're not going to get in at 4-5. They're sitting at 3-4 currently, and Macomb is the heavy favorite in that game as we speak. So they have to get an upset this week, and if they don't, that just sparks even more ability for Illini West to go into Week 9 against an Elmwood Brimfield team that may have be in their sorrows a little bit, because technically their playoff lives are done. But at the same token, they could go in there and be like, no, we're going to keep you out of the playoffs too. If we can't make it, we're going to keep you out. And, hopefully that's the way that they look at it, because at the end of the day, you always want to play for pride and community anyway, regardless of wins and losses. And either way, going to set up a ton of fun. I do like Illini West. I do have them projected in. But that is going to be a big one too, because like you said, a hiccup and they're not in.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at our Byron Wealth Management scoreboard from last week. Morrison beats Dakota 48-16. Dupac beats Forreston 34-20. Our game of the week didn't turn out to be that way, as Stockton beat EPC 46-8. Fulton beat Southwestern East Dubuque 56-40. And Lena Winslow beat Galena 46-0. Obviously, a lot of teams were surprised by the Stockton EPC score and by the Lena Winslow Galena score. Both teams are starting to turn things up, so to speak, as we get ready to head into the final 2 weeks. And with that, we have some huge standings in place here. When you take a look at those standings right there, Stockton is at the top at 6-0, 7-0. They play Dupac this week, which we'll talk about later in the show. Dupac enters at 6-0, 6-1. So that's got a proverbial conference championship on the line. If Dupac were to win that game, that sets up a big game in Week 9, because Dupac has to go on the road to Lena Winslow, who's sitting one game behind both of them at 5-1, 6-1 overall. The rest of the field, Forreston's at 4-3 and 4-3. They get their non-conference opponent this week. EPC is at 3-3, 4-3. Galena is 2-4, 3-4. Fulton 1-5, 2-5. They'll play Morrison this week for the wooden shoe. Morrison is 1-6, 1-6, getting their first win last week against Dakota. Dakota remains winless in conference play at 0-6, 1-6 overall. So we're going to take a look at our first game of the week when we return right after this.
Hey there, local high school football fans. This is Sean Considine, a Byron Tiger and Iowa Hawkeye alumni, and now an LPL financial advisor. I'm passionate about high school football because it's the purest form of the game where communities come together, lifelong character is built, and the love for football runs deeper than the scoreboard. You can find me in my Byron office most days until I run off to football practice. I'm happy to talk about football or the markets. I'll leave that up to you. I want to wish everyone across Illinois a safe, successful, and memorable high school football season. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Are you looking to raise funds for your program? Look no further than Leading Edge Fundraising, helping teams and programs raise more with less hassle. Whether you're gearing up for a new season or trying to hit a financial goal, Leading Edge has the tools, products, and experience to get you there. From youth clubs to varsity programs, they've helped teams across Illinois maximize profits and minimize stress. Want fundraising that actually works? Go with the local experts who know how to win off the field too. Contact Brandon at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, raising the standard. Reach out today and take your program to the next level. Well, that first game we're going to take a look at is Dakota at the number 13 ranked team in our NUIC football polls, Galena at 3-4. Dakota lost to Morrison last week, 48-16. Galena lost to Lena Winslow, 46-0. Obviously, the biggest thing is how do you guys have Galena sitting at number 13 in the rankings? Well, it's pretty simple, really, when you take a look at it. Strength of schedule does mean something, especially when you take a look at the core of the Class 1A field. On top of that, Galena entered the season in the state rankings, and they were projected to be 3-4 at this point in the season. So if they were projected to be 3-4, they were in the state rankings to begin with. Why would you necessarily drop them out of the state rankings?
You don't.
That's just it. I mean, have they dropped down? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were in the top 10. They're not in the top 10, but obviously they're still receiving votes because it's not about wins and losses. And I hate when people rank teams just based off of wins and losses alone. You have to look at the entire resume. And yeah, they have some big blowout losses, but who are those big blowout losses to? They're to the three teams that lead the conference, that are head and shoulders above everybody else right now. And then they have one other loss in a close game. So, I don't know. Either way, doesn't matter. For Dakota last week, Brody Good had 5 attempts for 84 yards and a touchdown. Dalen Long had 7 attempts for 51 yards and a touchdown. Zeke Wales led all ball carriers with 25 attempts and then finished with 70 yards. On the other side of the ball, Roman Romer was 13 for 23 for 89 yards passing. Max Schultz had 3 receptions for 17 yards. Drew Koenigs, 5 receptions for 42 yards. This is a must-win game for Galena. Obviously, a loss knocks them out of the playoff picture altogether. A win keeps them in. Dakota hasn't really played a meaningful conference game since 2022. Galena is projected to win this game pretty handily. I mean, the score projection roughly is Galena 42, Dakota 12. So Galena's got to win this one, and then they got to turn around in week 9, and they have to play Fulton. Fulton is actually starting to come on late. That will also be a tough game, but another game that we'll be talking about next week as we start to look into that playoff picture. Galena is projected to be in these playoffs right now.
Yeah, I know I pointed it out when you posted your projections, but there's barring Galena getting in, there's a shot for 4 NUIC teams in the quarters. Whether that happens or not, I'm not here to play that game just yet. But this is one that, like you said, Galena has to have. I think they'll get it. I find that kind of looking ahead a little bit, I find that week 9 matchup with Fulton interesting just because Fulton's been tough, and they could find a way to play spoiler. I'm not saying it'll happen. I don't know, but this is when I feel like Galena, if they are staying true to themselves, they'll take care of business pretty handily and get into next week. And this is a team who got into the playoffs last year at 5-4 and went to the quarterfinals.
Right, and you're right about Fulton. I mean, yes, they opened up week 1 with a big loss to EPC 52-20. They bounced back with a very respectable loss to a Dupec team 34-21. Followed that with a close loss to Forreston 36-28. And then were drubbed by Stockton and Lena Winslow, which really was expected to happen regardless. But since then, they bounced back with big wins. 55 points on Dakota, 56 points on Southwestern East Dubuque. You know, we talked about it back in week 3. That was a big game for Fulton against Forreston if they wanted to have a chance to sneak in at 5-4, because, you know, you take a look at these next 2 games with Morrison and Galena, you could see opportunities where they can beat Morrison and they can play with and or beat Galena. And had they beat Forreston back in week 3, we could be talking about a steamer team getting set to get into the playoffs. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. They did have arguably the toughest 5-game stretch to open a season across any team in Class 1A, and you really can't even argue it because, hell, you got 3 teams ranked in the top 10 in their own state rankings. Really 4 if you count EPC, but I know EPC is not in the AP poll. But when you take a look at our state rankings and you take a look at rating systems between Massey ratings, you take a look at HS ratings, and you take a look at rivals, EPC's there. Yeah, their record's not there, but clearly they've done something here in the season to where they're in the talk, in the conversation. And I know that there's teams that are going to be entering the 2A field that don't want to see a 5-4 EPC show up at their doorstep in week 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely.
But Galena gets the win here.
Yep.
All right, Fulton at Morrison. Fulton enters at 2-5. We just got done talking about them a little bit here. At Morrison, 1-6. Obviously, these 2 teams are about 15 miles apart. Both great Dutch communities playing for the Wooden Shoe. Boy, we got some stats to talk about here. Fulton winning last week 56-40 over Southwestern East Dubuque. Morrison beating Dakota 48-16. For Fulton, Wyatt Connor had 16 attempts for 107 yards. Braden Myers had 27 yards rushing with a touchdown. Also was 15 for 18 passing, 155 yards and 4 touchdowns. His leading target was Landon Liu, 6 receptions, 81 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, Morrison, Carson White, once again, big game, 8 for 10, 184 yards, 3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Brady Anderson had a huge game for Morrison, 4 attempts, 110 yards, a touchdown. Also added a 74-yard touchdown reception. Levi Milder had 6 attempts for 58 yards and a touchdown, and then had 3 receptions for 110 yards and another 2 touchdowns. So Morrison was definitely able to get the passing attack going a little bit here, but they were definitely able to display and showcase that speed that we've been talking about all season long. Have not had it really come to fruition. Obviously, it was against Dakota. Still very fun to watch. Colin Rankus also added a touchdown receiving as well with 2 receptions on 35 yards. Logan, this rivalry dates back to 1901. And from 1917 to 1941, they didn't play each other at all. This is the 94th meeting. The Wooden Shoe itself was established in 1977. Morrison leads that series 28-17. Obviously, the Wooden Shoe does not get awarded in the playoffs. These 2 teams have met 4 times in the playoffs. The series there is tied 2-2. And the Wooden Shoe currently resides in Fulton, as Fulton won this game 41-7 a season ago. And I have to thank our good friend Greg Pruis for all of these statistics on the Wooden Shoe and the rivalry between Morrison and Fulton, because it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. A lot of energy when these 2 teams get together. There's been relatives that have played against each other in these games over the years because of the close proximity between the 2. and it never ceases. It doesn't matter what your records are. Granted, this isn't the game that we're used to seeing a Fulton Morrison wooden shoe game be. Usually they have much bigger records with much bigger things on the line. Regardless, still going to be a lot of energy at EM Bud Cole Field come Friday night in Morrison.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fun rivalry. I've learned about it throughout the last couple of years, especially with starting to listen to more of the stuff up north from you and the Greg and Mitch and them. So I find it intriguing. I know the projection has Fulton winning 34-28. I like Fulton just based off of what we have seen this year. That's kind of my take on it. I do remember, I think it was 22 when they met in the playoffs, or was it 23? I remember them meeting up in the playoffs not too long ago and them playing, and I
23.
remember
Yeah.
23? Okay. I remember them playing in the playoffs and this being brought up, and I was like, I don't know what this is, and I like tried to do a deep dive into finding out what it was.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Fulton got up to a 13-0 lead, and then Morrison turned it on and ended up winning the game before eventually losing later in the playoffs. But that was a big year for Morrison. Obviously, they still have some players from that game and that team on this year's team. So when you take a look at the age differential, Morrison definitely has a lot more experience under their belt. But like you said, we've seen big things out of Fulton here throughout the course of the season. But when you take a look at like comparable games, they both played Forest in a similar fashion. They both took it to Dakota in the same fashion. Um, I'm not surprised by the projection. I think that the projection is pretty good. I do think that Fulton wins the game. I will not be surprised if we see the wooden shoe head back to Morrison either.
No, it's a
Um,
coin flip game. It's
yeah,
the projection is a touchdown. It's a coin flip.
it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch this game, and you know, both these teams, I believe, I can't remember. Oh, Morrison has to play Marquette in week 9, and Marquette is most likely going to be a playoff team. They're projected to be in the playoffs. They're sitting at 4-3 right now. So our friends Greg and Mitch have another rivalry game going on here because they used to be Big Rivers opponents as well. With that said, um, if Morrison does get the win, that gives a playoff point to Marquette. So you know, for the Crew fans, they definitely want to see that additional playoff point come their way. It might not do much in the playoff seedings, but every point helps, obviously, as you're fighting for those spots and
Seeding.
positions in the seeds. But yep, I have Fulton winning, and should be a lot of fun.
Yep, definitely.
All right, we'll return right after this. Life comes with a lot of big decisions, from protecting your home and family to planning for the future. That's where Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial comes in. As a local agent, Tyler knows our community and is committed to helping you build a plan that's right for you. Give Tyler Hoffman a call today at 815-248-2188 or stop by his office in Durand. Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial. Protecting what matters most. Need a logo, website, or standout graphic design? Check out Nick at Volkert Design, your go-to for high-impact branding and design solutions. With over 20 years of experience serving businesses across Northern Illinois and Chicagoland, Nick delivers best-in-class websites, logos, and graphics that get noticed. Whether you're a startup or an established name, Volkert Design brings your vision to life. Visit Volkert.design today to see the difference top-tier design makes. Logan, we start to get into some of these bigger matchups that we were talking about that are going to have playoff pictures and potential implications on the line. First one we're going to talk about is number 9 Forreston at 4-3, going on the road Saturday to Leroy to play the Panthers, who are also 4-3. Last week, Forreston lost to... They did not lose to EPC. Who did they lose
Dupek.
to? They lost to Dupek 34-20. Leroy beat Hayworth 14-12. That was a game that Leroy was projected to lose, and Hayworth was the favorite going in that game. So like you said, back when we were talking about everything, Leroy was the team that wasn't projected to win. Now they find themselves at 4 wins, vying for a playoff opportunity themselves, a team that was in the semifinals a season ago. They only returned 4 starters this year. So they had to change a lot of things around. You take a look at their schedule, and they started the season 0-3, have since gone 4-0 to get them to this 4-3 record right now. A game this week against Forston, a game next week against Tuscola. Definitely going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, there's a couple games you can take a look at for score comparisons between those two teams. But looking at Forston, they definitely need to win this game. A loss here doesn't knock them out of the playoff picture, but when you have Stockton lurking in week 9 for your final game, this is huge. And this ain't the first time we've talked about Forston having a must-win game. We talked about this back in week 5 against Galena. They had to beat Galena in order to be in the playoff picture. This was the game. This game we're going to right now is the game that we were talking about, that if Forston beat Galena back in week 5, this would be the next one up to get the Cardinals into the playoffs. That is huge because they've already been in this position before, and here they are again, and now it's monumental. They have to have it. And realistically, this Cardinal team is very resilient. You saw it last week against Dupec. They fought and clawed and battled. They brought that game within a 22-20 score, but just couldn't get any closer after that. These guys don't give up. They're fun to watch because they play every play like you should, and they continue to fight and claw. Kane Loomis had 15 attempts for 40 yards and a touchdown. Eli Ferris had 5 attempts for 14 yards and a touchdown. Connor Polish had 10 attempts for 52 yards, threw a 32-yard passing touchdown, and he also had 3 receptions for 104 yards. Brady Gill was 4 for 5 passing with 111 yards, and Jonathan Milnes added 11 attempts for 30 yards on the ground, and Mickey Props was the benefactor of that 32-yard receiving touchdown from Polish. So I don't know. This has a lot riding on it. Obviously, like we've already talked about. I didn't put it in my notes. Forston is the favorite in this game. They are a 12-point favorite. And
the projection was 27-21 Forston.
So obviously it's definitely looking like it's going to be a close game. Would expect nothing less, to be honest, and it should be because you just have so much riding on the line here that it's just gonna be a lot of fun. I gotta decide if I'm gonna make the trip down to Leroy this week to watch this game on Saturday. I want to, and I very well might because it's huge, and Forston needs to be, in my opinion, Forston needs to be in the playoffs. You know, we've been talking about it. We've been talking about the opportunity all year, right?
It's a playoff game type feel in week 8. Obviously, even if Lena wins, or it's Leroy, sorry, the Lees get me. Even if Leroy were to lose this game, they still have a week 9 opportunity with Tuscola, and I checked it today. I think the projection was like 19-14, 20-14 Tuscola. I checked it just because I was curious because I knew we would talk about it. So very much a coin flip type of game for Leroy week 9, whereas opposed to Stockton, like you alluded to and mentioned, they got Stockton, and that's a tall task to climb in a Week 9 game, do or die, for a Stockton team that's just been clicking on all cylinders without a mistake really since the start of the year. So this is I hate using the term and the cliche must win, but if there was ever a must win game for Forston, again, this is one of them. This is it.
Yep, I'm gonna pick Forston to win. They're my pick to win for sure.
I got Forston.
Yeah, I see the Cards getting back in the playoffs. I just feel very strongly about it, and no better way than take a 2-hour drive south to come away with a victory. All right, we're gonna move over to the pasture. EPC comes in with a 4-3 record. They are going to play host to the number 2 ranked Lena Winslow Panthers, who enter at 6-1. Lena Winslow beat Galena 46-0. EPC lost to Stockton 46-8. Last week, not a lot going on for EPC. Draven Zier led the way, 15 attempts, 142 yards, and the lone touchdown. Defensively, Will Burchin led the defense with 9 tackles. Zier, Tegan Dyson, Zy Haverlin, and Brody Vagley all had 5 tackles each. You could tell that EPC spent a lot of time on defense last week. With that said, on the other side of the ball, Aiden Wild had 14 attempts for 194 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex Schlichting added 11 attempts for 140 yards and a touchdown. So those two together put up their best rushing numbers of the season, running for 334 yards collectively with 3 touchdowns. Miles and Merrick Mann, the Mann brothers, led the defense. Both picked up 7 tackles each. Lena Winslow starting to become Lena Winslow here as the season gets late, and it's nothing that you wouldn't expect. EPC, on the other hand, we've watched them be consistently inconsistent at different times. You go back to week 3, they lost a game that they probably should have won. Dupec, you thought that they would put up a better game than they did, and they laid an egg there, and then they returned from that and pound Forston, which they needed to do to keep their playoff lives in balance. But then you expect them to come into Stockton and give them a good fight, and they just, outside of Zier getting what he got, the rest of the offense couldn't do anything against the Blackhawks. And that speaks volumes for what Stockton can do defensively at the same time. But EPC's got another strong one here against Lena Winslow. And if they truly want to be a contender, even in the 2A playoffs, they have to be able to play with Lena Winslow, because you have the projections looking at Wilmington being in there. Rockridge beat them last year 22-8 in the first round. And right now, Rockridge looks much better this year than what they were a year ago. And I don't know. EPC's got to find some consistency here, and they have to be able to do it against Lena Winslow.
Yeah, they don't have to win this game by no means. That's not what the point you're trying to make. They just got to put up a better fight, kind of like Forston did with Dupec last week. We talked about it last week. We said we didn't expect Dupec to lose. We both picked Dupec, and nothing had really changed there. The only thing that had changed was that we expected Forston to put up a better fight than what was anticipated, and for much of that game they did. So it's kind of the same thing with EPC here with Lena. If they want to be a true contender in 2A, just to call it like that, because 2A is seemingly running through the North, especially with Wilmington in there at the moment. That could change, but with Wilmington and Rockridge and Farmington, they got to put up a better fight against Lena Winslow than what they showed last week if they truly want to be seen as a contender to get deep into 2A.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, Lena Winslow enters as a 32-point favorite, I think.
Projected to win 34-12, yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe EPC can close that gap, but right now, Lena Winslow definitely the favorite, and like we just said, Lena Winslow is definitely moving their trajectory in a high level. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I like Lena Winslow in this one for sure.
I'm with you.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the NUIC area? Trust local expertise. Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country knows the market and understands the community. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or buying your first home, Jess is here to make the process simple and stress-free. Put his experience to work for you today. Call Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country at 608-347-3659. Your hometown realtor, helping you find home where your story begins. All right, Logan, we are going to talk about our Jess Schumacher Remax Town, Lake, and Country game of the week. It features the number 1 ranked Stockton Blackhawks at 7-0 going on the road to Durand to play the number 6 ranked Dupac Rivermen, who enter at 6-1. Both teams are 6-0 in conference play. The conference title, or at least the share of the conference title, is on the line in this game, depending on who wins this game. Stockton beat EPC 46-8 last week. Dupac beat Forston 34-20. For the Blackhawks, Jack Mensendijk had 17 attempts for 114 yards and a touchdown, and an 11-yard receiving touchdown. Mark Detweiler picked up 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground on 15 attempts with 54 yards. And our Reese and Reese NUIC Player of the Week goes to this man right here, Noah Larson, the quarterback. 6 for 9 passing for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns, 7 attempts for 38 yards and a touchdown, helping propel the Blackhawks to that big 46-8 win. So congratulations to Noah Larson on our Reese and Reese NUIC Player of the Week. Likewise, you had other contributions. Morgan Haas had 3 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. We got to talk about Maya Luke. He did a lot both on the offensive line and defensive line. He was a linebacker last year, converted to nose guard this year. He's definitely been a key cog in the middle of that defense on that line that has just created a lot of disruption for the Blackhawks against opposition. Had 7 tackles. Mark Detweiler at middle linebacker also added 7 tackles. Man, I tell you what, I've been saying it since the week 2 win over Lena Winslow, but Stockton definitely looks geared for a big playoff run, potential run to normal. And right now, I mean, there's nobody slowing them down, nobody stopping them.
It's been impressive since that week 2 game with Lena Winslow. They've like I mentioned earlier, they've been firing all cylinders really the whole year. There hasn't been a moment where you looked at a score or anything and you're like, well, I'm surprised it wasn't by more. The only time you looked at a score and was surprised was week 2, based on the margin of victory they had against Lena. It wasn't that they won; it was the margin of victory in which they did. So for Stockton, it's seemingly been business as usual this year for them. I mean, they haven't. And not to say, and I'm not saying they haven't been tested by good teams, because they have, but they haven't been in that nitty gritty dogfight that you would expect in at least in the week 2 game or something. So it's been very impressive out of them this year.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Obviously, the last time Stockton beat Dupac came back in the 2019 season in week 6. Stockton won that one 28-0. That was Dupac's first year in the playoffs. Stockton also got back to the playoffs that year before losing to Akwin in the second round of those playoffs. Jesse Snyder was the head coach of the Blackhawks at the time, now an assistant coach for Lena Winslow, his alma mater. Definitely going to be huge for Dupac to do this. They've been controlling this game for the past 5 seasons. But if there's any year that Stockton can get it, it'd be this year. And the past couple years, these two teams have met up in week 1. Both years that we've talked about Dupek being a title threat contender, in both years Dupek squeaked away with the win. Now, you have both teams here with a conference championship on the line. It's going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of a lot of fun, Dermot Dolan, obviously last week, 29 attempts, 334 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Lucas Rosso was gone last week, the quarterback, as he was in the state golf championships, where he finished in the top 20 for Dupek Golf. He'll be back in the lineup this week. So congratulations to Lucas Rosso on being a dual sport athlete. Congratulations to Dupek for allowing them to be able to compete in both sports simultaneously as well. And, great job by, Braden Cox and Blake Scroggins for taking on the quarterback duties in Lucas's absence at the same time to keep the Rivermen going in the trend that they want to go into. This one's huge, though. I mean, we already know it. Justin Anderson, 14 tackles. Trey Jones, 11 tackles. Those two combined for 25 tackles alone. Tyler Tunick also had 7 tackles. Obviously, for the Rivermen, they're going to have to find a way to slow everything down because Stockton can fire at both ends. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball. Dupek has the ability to throw the ball, but they've been primarily a running team. They're going to have to be quick off the line. That's one thing that we see with Stockton every week. It's one thing that Coach Downey has talked about to fruition all season long. He's not going to be the biggest team taking the field anytime. But what they do is they are fast and they are quick and they are strong and they fire off the ball very fast. And that's what helped them neutralize Lena Winslow at the line of scrimmage. They beat him off the ball. And how many times do we talk about that happening? It doesn't. This Stockton team is ready for the long haul. They have proven it time and time and time again. There's really not much more to prove outside of just getting into the playoffs and doing it at this point. But it starts this week. A win here gives Stockton a conference title, which is something that they definitely want to get back into the hallways, into, what they want to accomplish as they move forward down the road here.
Yeah, for sure. This is I really find this intriguing just because we talked about it earlier in the year with how Dupek's doing more. They're a wing T style offense within a spread style formation with twins and everything. I really find it interesting because, like you said, they're going to have to slow down the game and they're going to have to eat away clock. It's going to be, can Dupek get 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s consistently? And it's not going to be about the long plays and long runs. It's going to be about, can we get 4.5 yards a carry and keep the ball out of this explosive Stockton offense and wear down what's been a great Stockton defense. That, in my opinion, not having watched them very closely this year, not watching a lot other than like the highlights I get, that's kind of the way I see the blueprint for Dupek having to win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. They definitely have to slow that game down and control the clock, control the tempo and the pace. And then they have to be able to defend the pass. And it's something that we've talked about, with having tight ends like Eli Larson and Morgan Hass, and then you have running backs in Jack Mensendike and Carter Blair that can also go out into pass routes. They create mismatches in so many different ways. And then the silent factor is Noah Larson. I mean, the kid's the fastest kid on the field for the Blackhawks. And the ability he has to get outside the pocket and then take off when needed, while we haven't seen it on a regular basis, and that's exactly what I mentioned earlier this week on the View from the West podcast, is just that. It's if they go if you try to shut everything down and you have everybody guarded and you don't have him covered, he's gonna beat you in a foot race. And that's what makes Stockton so dangerous, is because the minute he gets out of the pocket, you have to respect that speed. You have to be able to defend it as if he's going to run. But then as you're closing in, something behind you's opening up, and then he just dumps it over the top. And that's, as you know, that's very hard to defend when you can be so productive running the ball and throwing the ball, especially at the efficiency level that he's done it on all season long.
Yeah, he's been terrific throwing the ball. I know it's a high completion percentage. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know it's a lot to a little with the completion percentage. I know it's very high. I don't even know if I don't think he's thrown an interception yet this year.
I think he's thrown one.
One. I knew if he threw a one, it wasn't very. I knew if he didn't have one, hadn't thrown any, or if he did, it was very few. So, like you talked about, he's been efficient with the ball. He and you said he's the fastest kid on the field for his team at the quarterback position. When the second he escapes the pocket, what do? Do you stay back and stay on your guy, or do you come up and see if he dumps it off like he has all year? There's no right answer because he's going to make you pay with both. So
I stand corrected. He's thrown two.
Oh, stealing my thunder here. Either way,
14 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, almost a
Not bad.
69% completion rate.
not too shabby. So
Those are some high QBR numbers.
Yeah. He's been, like you said, he's been efficient with the ball in his hand, and he's the fastest kid on the field. And at some point, he's gonna beat a team with his legs. It's yet to be seen, but at some point it's gonna happen. And I'm curious if it happens this week with Dupek wanting to keep everything in front of him and saying, we'll cover all our guys, your guys, and see how he runs. I wonder if it's this week that it happens.
Yeah. And here's the thing too. I know that there's some people out there that feel that Dupek can win this game. And they say that because off of, comparable games against other opponents, maybe they've seen something different in head-to-head competition. When you look at score comparisons and everything else, though, it definitely screams the other direction.
Stockton.
Yes. And here's the thing. Stockton's the favorite. Stockton is my pick to win. If Dupek does get this upset, boy, oh boy, will that change some people's thoughts in a hurry. I think it's going to be a great game. Obviously, this is the game I'm going to this week, so I'm excited because I can see this going either way, despite the fact that Stockton's a 2-touchdown favorite. Dupek knows that they've owned Stockton. Likewise, Stockton knows that they can play with Dupek because they've done it each of the last 2 years. Which one's going to get it done this year is what matters. And, we've talked about the absence of, like, Cooper Hoffman. Well, Noah Larson is he doesn't have the arm that Cooper had, but he has the elusiveness and he has the ability to throw with the accuracy that Cooper could throw with. So it's almost like the tides have turned. Stockton's year. It's Stockton's year.
That's what it feels like. It just feels like everything's coming together for Stockton. That's really what it feels like. It was talked about in the off season. It was talked about in our preview show, and it's been talked about since then how Stockton has really become this team in 1A that everyone, and rightfully so, everyone has always placed Lena there. Well, you can theoretically, for now, you can throw that crowning of Lena out because Stockton's done what Lena has the last several years this year, including beating Lena. So it just Stockton seems to be here this year.
Yep, it's a lot of fun to watch. So my pick's the Blackhawks.
I want Stockton.
All right, let's take a look at the top 10. Obviously, we're not going to go through it a lot. I want to save a little bit more time to talk about the potential playoff matchup implications. Really, when you take a look at the top 10 in Class 1A, all the projected teams are expected to win. The highlight, the one that stands out, is number 6, Casey Westfield, is not projected to win. They are projected to lose. They play Richland County out of Olney. Richland County is the projected favorite, have been all season long. So we could see Casey Westfield get the blip. They're projected to be at 8-1 regardless, so this isn't anything new. But the number 8 spot, Tuscola, has to go to Hayworth. Tuscola is only favored by a score of 15-14. So that goes back to what we talked about with that Forrest and Leroy game where Leroy just beat Hayworth. If this game is as close as projected, you have to be able to say confidently that Leroy can compete with Tuscola.
Yeah, and even if you do the score projection this week, even though they don't play this week, just doing a week ahead, like I mentioned earlier, it says the same thing. I think it had Tuscola winning 19-14, 20-14. A coin flip. It's a coin flip game. So I really did not, I'm going to be honest, I did not expect it to be a 1-point game for them. I figured it would be like a touchdown between them and Hayworth. It being 15-14 when I was going through it this morning and adding stuff to our list, I was shocked, to say the least, because I did not expect that.
No, no, me neither. But that's what makes it fun. Like, it goes back to the old saying that you have to show up and play the game still, and
You do.
This is definite proof of that, which makes it fun. And then it just gives us something to talk about and be able to have a lot of fun with it. I do have Tuscola picked to win, but man, if Hayworth can pull that out, holy smokes, man!
That throws a wrench into seedings, because Hayworth right now is projected at 6-3 in most people's who do this. Now they're probably projected at 7-2 again. Same with Tuscola, they've been 8-1. Now they go to 7-2, and like we talked about with the Leroy matchup looming, theoretically they could go all the way from projected 8-1 to a 6-3 team.
Right. All right, let's take a look at Class 2A. The first game that really stands out is number 2 Rock Ridge playing number 7 in Class 3A Monmouth Roseville. When you talk to Mitch and Greg at View from the West, I'm pretty sure they both are leaning towards Monmouth Roseville in this game. Rock Ridge is my pick to win. I have Rock Ridge going undefeated. I like where Monmouth Roseville's at. I think that Coach Adolphson's doing a great job. Obviously, they've just won back-to-back Track Mississippi titles. We got to see him on Instant Reacts already wearing the back-to-back T-shirt as well. By the way, I hope I land one of those shirts. But I do still feel that, with Cullen Schweigen and with what Rockridge has been able to do, this is good. This definitely has a lot of big interest. Rockridge is the favorite. Believe it or not, they are the favorite in this game. I believe it, but Monmouth Roseville has definitely predicated themselves to this motto right here. Run teams win in November. That's what Coach Adolphson is definitely trying to build, is a team that can power run. And he's done an excellent job there, rightfully so. The marker game has been the Princeton game. Both these teams beat Princeton. Obviously, Monmouth Roseville beat Princeton by a better score than what Rockridge did. But Monmouth Roseville also has to play Newman next week as well. And Rockridge put it to Newman in conference play in the track rack division. So this game here is going to tell us who is the best team in the track this year. And then likewise, playoff seedings are on the line.
I love this game. I've talked about it on here already. I don't think my love for Colin Schweigen and how much I love him as a football player is very well hidden. I'm rolling with Rockridge like you are, like you. Uh, just what I've watched down of like the clip. Like I don't get to watch every single game. I wish I could, but just like the highlights and the clips and stuff I get to see, it's hard not to like this Rockridge team in 2A. And I will say, even with a favorite who I will stand by is still the favorite in 2A in Wilmington if they land there. Even with Wilmington 2A, it's hard not to think that Rockridge can't at least compete with them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm interested to see how this game plays out.
Yeah,
I'll definitely be having ears on this one. I think it's going to
it's
be on the
fascinating.
radio. I think WRMJ's covering this game, and if they are, this is definitely the one I'll be tuned into because I want to keep tabs on this one.
It's a fascinating game.
Yeah, number 6 Seneca plays St. Joe Ogden. This one I'm surprised by. I personally I like St. Joe Ogden in this game. Seneca's favored to win right now. Projection wise, I do have St. Joe Ogden winning this game. I just feel that St. Joe Ogden has played a much harder schedule than what we've seen Seneca go up against. You know, likewise, we heard all this talk about Seneca last year as well, and then they get beat in the early rounds of the playoffs. Didn't really live up to the hype. I personally, I don't see him living up to the hype this year either. Me personally, I think they're a top 10 team. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about a St. Joe Ogden team that we're looking at potentially making a deep run in the 3A South bracket too. So, not that that has any bearing. I just think that St. Joe Ogden is just the better team. If Seneca wins, that's great, for Coach Terry Maxwell. Obviously, he's a guy that we're also looking to get onto our playoff show here when we have that come up and get some information from him as well on the Irish. But I don't know. I this too is going to be a fun game. Again, playoff seedings are on the line. St. Joe Ogden is definitely on the fence right now too. Uh, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna be in the playoffs. I mean, let's be honest. I got them projected in. They have Pontiac to close out week 9, so they're gonna get that 5th win. But
Just a matter of where they're at.
they've
CD-wise.
lost 2 in a row. They had the surprising loss to Monticello in week 6, and then they got thumped by BCC last week.
Yeah, I like you. I'm like you. I think St. Joe's going to win. Again, like you brought up, and we've talked about with the lineup here just being a tough conference. That's not to say, like you said, that Seneca's not a top 10 team. They clearly are a top 10 team, but it's just St. Joe for most of the year has been ranked in 3A for us up until this week when they've lost 2 in a row. We've talked about how heavy 3A is this year. It's hard not, even what the projection says, it's hard not to pick St. Joe's in this, in my opinion.
Totally agree. Number 7, Moreau Forsyth plays number 8 in Class 3A Williamsville. So, again, another 2A state-ranked team playing a 3A state-ranked team. This was supposed to be for the single conference title until Olympia kind of ruined that last week. But it still can be.
Yes.
But it would be a share of the title if Moreau Forsyth wins. Williamsville is the favorite now. Before it was Moreau Forsyth until after last week. Now the tides have turned and the Bullets are now the favorite. So we'll see how that plays out. That will be at the Boyd in Moreau. So that will at least be in their favor. They get to play in front of their home crowd in a big game. 2 great coaches here, Coach Jostis and Coach Coons. Both of them, I'm sure, are I can't remember if Joseph is in the Hall of Fame already or not. Either way, they're both Hall of Fame style coaches, caliber coaches. Always fun when these 2 teams get together.
Yeah, I got a buddy in a class of mine who's from Williamsville, and I looked at him this week on Monday before class, and I'm like, you gonna win it outright, or are you gonna share? And he goes, well, I don't really know anymore.
This was one I had on the calendar. Because Forrest and Leroy plays on Saturday, my thoughts were go to Maroa, watch this game, stay the night somewhere, and then head over to Leroy and pick up Forrest
Leroy.
and Leroy. But, we got a big game up here that I need to be at. So, once again, my plans to go to the Boyd are taken apart, but should be a lot of fun. All right, taking a look in Class 3A, outside of the games we already talked about, the next big one is number 9, Bishop McNamara playing number 10, Chicago Hope. This is one we've been waiting for out of the Chicagoland Christian Conference. We've heard all about Malachi Lee and Bishop McNamara and what they can do, and rightfully so. They have great playmakers. They've been doing everything that they were supposed to do at a very high level all season long. Likewise, Chicago Hope has also answered a lot of those questions as well, and both these teams have come out of nowhere to be where they're at right now. Not a huge surprise. We saw Chicago Hope 2 years ago was definitely a state caliber team. Obviously, we watched Chicago Christian come out of this conference and win state last season. This one's going to be fun. And if you take a look, the one team that has put up the most points against both of them is Aurora Christian. And there's a reason why I said Aurora Christian, regardless of record, has to be a team that you're paying close attention to in those Class 2A playoffs. 2 years ago, Aurora Christian played neck and neck with Chicago Hope, and Chicago Hope gave Lena Winslow everything they wanted and more. And I definitely feel like Aurora Christian's right there. They put up 44 on Hope, and they put up 42 on Bishop McNamara. This game, 1 point potential differential. I really like what
I'll take the over.
Yeah.
I'll take the over.
I think you're going to have a high-scoring affair. I really do.
I do too. I think whatever the over is, it's a safe bet.
I mean, like I said, going back to that Aurora Christian Chicago Hope game, that was 105 points. Go back to the Bishop Mac and Aurora Christian game, that was, 87 points? Yeah. So, man. Yeah, I can see these two lighting up the scoreboard this week. If they truly want to be a title contender, they got to find a way to stop the other team's offense. That is going to be huge. So, should be a lot of fun there. All right, let's take a look at our impactful games this week as we wrap up our segment for the week, Logan. Let's start with the teams that are on that bubble of either being in the playoffs, not being in the playoffs, and just destroying all of our projections that we've put out there the last couple of weeks. Go ahead, start it off.
Starting off, you have Forreston and Leroy sitting at 4-3. Forreston is projected to win that one, 27-21, like I mentioned earlier. In my neck of the woods, you have Mendon Unity sitting at 4-3, going to West Central Winchester, who's sitting at 3-4. Winchester is projected to win that one, 26-21. Elsewhere, you have Warrensburg-Layson sitting at 3-4, taking on Dwight, who's 4-3. Warrensburg-Layson is projected to win that one, 31-24. Then you have Chicago Orr sitting at 4-3, taking on Chicago Marshall, who's 3-4. Chicago Marshall is projected to win that one, 38-7. Monticello and Prairie Central are playing. Monticello at 5-2, Prairie Central at 4-3. Monticello is projected to win 21-7. North Boone will be at Stillman Valley. Both teams sit at 4-3. Stillman Valley is projected to win 31-14. Triopia and Greenfield take on each other. Both teams sitting at 4-3 at Greenfield or Palmyra. I don't know where that game's technically at this week. Greenfield are projected to win 21-7. Looking at some other games that we have on here, we have Sparta sitting at 4-3, taking on DuPo, who's 6-1. DuPo is projected to win 40-21, and then last but certainly not least, you have Chicago Crane, who is 5-2, taking on Chicago Collins, who's 5-2, with Chicago Crane projected to win 28-17. Well, which ones stick out to you, other than the ones we've kind of already talked about?
Prairie Central and Monticello sticks out. While I think Monticello has definitely proven that they are the team to win that game, if Prairie Central is to get that, that's going to throw a wrench in there because Monticello is already playoff eligible. Prairie Central then also becomes playoff eligible. Sparta DuPo should win that one. But again, if Sparta gets it, they're in. Sparta is not favored in week 9 either. So really for Sparta, this is the game that they have to have in order to be a playoff team. North Boone, Stillman Valley. Obviously, I've been projecting Stillman Valley the whole time. I have not had North Boone in any of the projections. That score differential, 31-14, feels about right. Triopia, Greenfield, Northwestern, like you talked about. It would be something if Triopia won. I do like GNW though. I do like them by 2 scores as well. We've seen what their defense can do against the likes of a Calhoun and a Camp Point Central. But if Triopia is to do it, they got this week, they got next week. I think next week has a better opportunity for them when you take a look at what both those teams are between Carrollton and GNW. I think GNW is just a little bit tougher, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Unity and West Central, like you said, that's going to be huge. I do have West Central in now into the playoff projections. I've already had people asking about that. Even sitting at 3-4 right now, and what we know about Mendon Unity and their unfortunate loss at quarterback currently, it has opened up the doors because we had Mendon Unity in the playoff projections. They have now been taken out. West Central has squeaked their way in there. They still have to take care of business. This one is going to be huge. If they don't get it, Mendon Unity's in, and then we're taking a look at moving another team from 2A back into 1A, which would be Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond at the time. Warrensburg, Latham, and Dwight. Obviously a very, very good game there. Dwight needs to win. If Dwight does not win this game, they're also not projected to win their Week 9 matchup either. And they're not getting into the playoffs. And this is a team that, while they were in a co-op last year, this was a team that was in the 2A quarterfinals a season ago, returning a lot of guys from that team. And they just have not performed to the same level that they did a season ago. Granted, I think they've had a little bit of a tougher schedule this year than what they had to face last year, which kind of helped them. And then they got a good draw on top of that to help propel them into the quarterfinals, because they were not a team I felt was a quarterfinal caliber team, as we got to face them in week 1 last year at Dakota. But I don't know. The CPL games, those are huge, okay? And the reason being is because both those, the Crane Collins and the Orr Marshall, they're in 2 of those 4 conferences where you either have to win the conference championship, which neither one of these teams are going to, but they have to at least finish in second place this week to be in the Week 9 matchup against another second place team. And the winner of those second place games then get the final 2 spots into the playoffs. Marshall, yes, they're 3-4, but they're sitting in second in their conference right now. They're a huge projected favorite over Orr. If Orr is to spin that and get that upset, they're going to take over that number 2 spot for Marshall. Marshall right now is projected to win their head-to-head Week 9 matchup, which is why I have them projected into the playoff field. Likewise, Collins and Crane are in the same situation. Crane is the team that is projected to win. They're also the team that's projected in the playoffs for the same exact purposes. They are projected to win that crossover Week 9 matchup. So huge changes to the playoff field can take place here. And it's going to definitely be a lot of fun. Obviously, some other interesting games of note are more so what we've already talked about, bigger games, has no bearing on the playoff field. It's just more on playoff seeding, and that's the Stockton-Dupac game, which we've already talked about, Williamsville, Maroa, Forsyth, Monmouth, Roseville, Rockridge, Bishop Mack, Chicago Hope, and then Richland County and KZ Westfield. All of them are really intriguing matchups. The biggest score differential is the Stockton-Dupac game as far as projections are concerned. That or the Richland County KC Westfield game. They're about in the same ballpark.
Yeah, they're in the same area, so fun games, that's for sure. That change the playoff seeding if they break the way we don't think they will.
Yep. So if you haven't seen our playoff projections yet, you can get on X, you can get on Instagram, you can get on Facebook. We have them all out on the social media platforms. Obviously, we wanted to take a different look this week, so we didn't share the projections on the show this week, but either way, they're available out there. Go ahead, comment, say whatever you want. I'm sure you'll get a reply or a response from somebody. Maybe me, who knows? Obviously, we've had a lot of interaction on it. It's been great to see a lot of different things take place. Obviously, like we said back in week 5 when we first threw them out there, as the weeks get closer to the playoff show, you're going to see these things come into fold and it becomes much more clear. And Logan, I've seen you state the exact same things on the WIVC football page as well, especially after this week. You're like, there are still games up for grabs, which is great. That's what you want. You want to see that competitive balance. And it's a lot of fun to see and watch and follow. What people need to understand is these projections are doing just that. We're just trying to paint that picture of where you can see teams lining up. Doesn't mean I hate your team or I like this team or like that team. It has nothing to do with that. I don't care. I'm going to be in normal either way for the state championships. I don't care who's there because I will be there. But it's fun. I enjoy giving that picture out there for the people to see because it provides a different view. I know, Steve Susi's been doing this for almost 30 years, if not longer, and he does an awesome job. And, I like to collaborate with him as well, but I know we also have differing projections when it comes to this stuff. So it gives another point of view, and that's what I like to see. I like to give another point of view to see where teams could end up, where they don't end up, stuff like that. So, speaking of our playoff show, that will be coming up on October 25th at 6:30 p.m. We will talk about 8-man, Class 1A, 2A, and 3A. We're going to take a look at projected matchups, go through those matchups, talk about what we could see happening. We'll go through full bracket release for IFA, Class 1A, 2A, and 3A once they're released from their respective classifications. And then we're doing something new this year. We're going to have coaches interviews, and we've already lined up quite a few coaches already that we're expecting to get on. And, and they're not just coaches in our area. We're looking to grab coaches from around the state to get their perspective on how they see things playing out, or, talk about their teams, get some more insights and information, what they've gone through, adversity, what they've seen as challenges, and just really get a inside look at what they think their team can do. Obviously, with all things, coaches always like to keep it somewhat tight and short, but we just want to get some more information on the team in itself. That way they're not putting themselves out there saying that they're going to be here, and here, but also get their insight on what they see other teams that they're going to potentially face come up on. So should be a lot of fun. Well, it's always a lot of fun. Tune in. We hope that we get a good crowd. The last 3 years have definitely given us great reviews and ratings. And be quite honest, with the people that we bring together, I think we get a great amount of information in from around the entire state, not just our northwest corner of the state, and arguably probably put out one of the best small school football products when it comes to playoff shows in the state of Illinois. So, Logan, we always appreciate your help and insight and collaboration, and you do great stuff. And obviously, like we've talked about, we're looking to expand next year as well to get an even greater depth in coverage in your area, along with trying to gather whatever information we can get from other areas as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I'm enjoying this year. Clearly, my boys they keep on at it. You got this week, we got route. I'm looking forward to it. It's a Saturday game. It'll feel like a playoff game. And then looms the week 9 matchup that I've been waiting for all year. I don't think that's a secret. I don't think that one's a secret. I have looked forward to that game all year.
Well, when you go to Jacksonville and you get ready to walk on the freezing field, just look to your right and you'll see Michelson House. And that's where I resided for 3 years, just so you know.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the end of the regular season is coming, but the start of the second season is what I've been looking forward to. No matter if Calhoun's in or not, it's the funnest time of the year. Even when we weren't very good a few years ago, I know I was messaging you, just like talking about it, trying to figure things out and seeing how your point of view thought to mine, and it's postseason ball is the best time of the year, bar none. Obviously, these last 2 weeks are great because this is the lead into it, and you have playoff games in anywhere you can look. So it's a fun time of year.
It's definitely starting to shape up that way. I was running through some numbers earlier today, and I can't remember the total. I think it was 159 teams that are already playoff eligible for those 256 spots. That number seems to stick out in my head right now. So, it's going to be a lot of fun, and obviously still a lot of spots to get. And it starts this week in week 8 with some big games that can definitely shape or change that picture. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We wish you the best of luck this week. Obviously, going up against Route is always fun. You get to go up against Coach Creviston, who is also a proud Mac alum. Go Mac. And after that, go get that W, and like you said, set up that picture to go up against Brown County in week 9, where you get one of my former teammates on the other side of the ball, and Jared Hoots.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. It's a fun week. Like I said, it's winding down, but the start of the second season is beginning.
We're going to have Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle joining us coming up next to talk about 8-man football right after this. When it comes to concrete floors, don't settle for ordinary. Upgrade to extraordinary with Diedrich Epoxy. Whether it's your garage, basement, shop, or business, Diedrich Epoxy delivers durability, style, and a flawless finish built to last. Locally owned and trusted, they'll transform your space with professional epoxy flooring that stands up to whatever life throws at it. Take the first step today. Call Diedrich Epoxy at 815-239-1158 and bring strength and style to your floors. Need a fresh look? Look no further than Neff Paints, where quality meets craftsmanship. From gyms and locker rooms to living rooms and home projects, Neff Paints has you covered with top-tier products and expert service. Trusted by local pros and proud supporters of our area athletes, Neff Paints brings the durability, color, and finish that lasts. Ready to get started? Call Skylar at 815-541-7338 and take the first step toward your next transformation. Neff Paints, locally owned, community driven, quality you can see. Joined by Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle, we're ready to talk about some 8-man football. We had Logan Swan on just a little bit ago to talk 11-man side. Now we're moving into the 8-man side. We have some big games that have changed the playoff projections a little bit. There's also some big games coming up in the forefront here that can also play and wreak havoc to the projections. What we do know, Joe, is we have 13 teams already qualified for the playoff field.
Yeah, it's 13 teams, as you said, already set. Already 11 teams, guys, 6-1 or better to this point of the season. So that's kind of tells you a couple things. One, there's some really good teams and maybe some teams that really aren't, where they would like to be. But I think it also tells you that probably going to be the most competitive playoffs by far that the 8-man field has seen, and this will be year number 6 since the field expanded to 16. So
Yep.
Definitely going to be very competitive.
Should be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to it. What are some games that stood out for you here this past week that really brought things to the forefront for the whole IFA?
Yeah, so first one I'll talk about, guys, that West Division game, West Central 40, FCW 32. Kyle, I think we were both picking FCW in this one, or at least I was.
I did too.
And, it's not like both teams had a couple key players with some injuries. That's kind of part of the game at this point. But West Central jumped on them 16-0 right off the bat, and then FCW came back and tied it. It came right down to West Central scoring towards the end. FCW driving towards the end, but he able to come up with a stop and get that big win to get to 6-1 on the season.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we were looking at, and really surprised that the Heat won that game. I really thought FCW was going to be the favorite in that game. They'd shown that they could be all season long, but congrats to Coach Kirby getting the Heat to 6-1. I don't think it's something that everybody saw happening, but he's got to be really excited, especially with what we talked about back in the preseason, replacing almost his entire offense, only bringing back 2 guys, and then, of course, having Graham Kelly in the backfield this year, only being a sophomore as well. And then whatever other impact players he's had, I haven't really got a chance to talk to Coach Kirby much since the preseason, unfortunately. But regardless, great job by him in the Heat for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Next game, of course, Kyle, this was kind of the one we were talking about going into
that's the
week 7.
shocker of them all, right?
Yeah. South Fork, 42, Pawnee 19. I was picking Pawnee probably by a touchdown, but wasn't going to be surprised if, South Fork won a close one. But for South Fork to win this one, 42-19, and really Pawnee's last touchdown came at the end with some subs in for both teams. And again, South Fork's, they got that ground game going, guys, with George Bailey and that offensive line.
Kyle's
Kyle,
guy.
I don't know if you did you guys able to see the highlights or catch some of this, or the holes that line was was making for Bailey?
Yeah, I watched the whole game. They were huge.
And I saw the post-game interview too, Bailey giving credit that offensive line and his fullback as well. So guys, we've talked about it plenty. Jay knows this from coaching. You get to November, you got to be able to run the football. And it looks like South Fork's got a pretty good run game here as we head down towards the playoffs.
Yeah, I think in any game of football, I know this sounds like easy stuff, but you watch it when you watch the Lee Wins play. You watch it when you were watching Forson back in the day play. 8-man, it's even more able to see when you get a good running back to the second level untouched. It is I would say 70-80% of the time a touchdown. In 11-man, you have the safety over the top, that they got outrun, and you just watch the Lee wins in that, what they do in November of creating holes and not taking anything away from the running backs that they've had. But you win and lose games with the offensive and defensive line, and the holes that South Fork was given, um, their backs, you know, that is how you win in November.
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle, on the other side of the coin there, what do you take away from Pawnee with that game?
My thoughts on Pawnee is obviously we know that Caden Ward's the quarterback, and they've done a lot of great things with him all season long.
Right.
The downfall is exactly what we've seen pop up across social media. The ability to establish a run game. We
Yeah.
talk about it all the time. Run teams win. You got to run the ball in order to really win the game. You know, John O'Boyle said it best. When you throw the ball, 3 things can happen. 2 of them
Yep.
are bad,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And, you know, really, when you put the ball in the air, it's the old saying that live by the sword, die by the sword. And while the efficiency for Ward has been there all season, we talked about it last week. He was throwing at like almost a 70% clip, had like 22 touchdowns through the air to only 2 interceptions. But if you can't establish the run game, that doesn't really bode well for you offensively to help yourself establish clock control along with pace and structure of the game. Likewise, that line for South Fork just obliterated Pawnee on both sides of the ball. It didn't matter.
Yeah, that was my kind of one of my main takeaways too. Like South Fork dominated the line of scrimmage. Um, so we'll see how Pawnee bounces back. They got a big one coming up against Metro East. And speaking of Metro East, that's my other game Kyle wanted to mention. They beat Martinsville last week by a score of 70-40. Metro East, week 1 put up 34 points. Since then, guys, they've scored at least 50 points in every game, even the loss to South Fork a week ago. So Metro East, they got the offense rolling. There's no doubt about that. Little concerned about the points they've given up, obviously. But man, when you know you can score just about every time you touch the ball, that means something as well.
Yeah, I was listening to your guys' podcast this week, and, you know, it's always great information with what you and Bob and Patrick put out there. And, you know, like I've talked to you many times off air, you guys do a phenomenal job of trying to establish yourselves around the state with that as well. And likewise, you know, that's one of my concerns when I look at some of these teams. Yes, they have the ability to score,
Right.
but we've seen it every year so far. The team that plays defense is that and can score is the team that's going to win state. And granted, we've had some games get away. You know, we watched the Polo West Central game be a 50-48 game in the semifinals here a couple years ago. We watched some other games get up there, but at the same time, you could see the defensive play happening. And, you know, West Central was a good defensive team that year with a very explosive offense. And at times they kind of leaned on the offense where really your more established teams do rely on their defense along with the ability to score offensively. But it does pose a little concern in my opinion. Jay, what do you think? You're a coach.
I think in football's football, whether 8-man, 11-man, when you look at the top teams in 8-man, and we'll talk NUIC, Milledgeville, Polo, Amboy, those teams that you see week in and week out, they all play defense. You know, they're not giving up. Milledgeville is not going to give up 50 points to anyone. Amboy will not give up 50 points to anyone. You know what I mean? It's like they know enough of how you got to play football that it's going to be a 34-28 game in a game that they're going to win or lose against a good team, right? You look at week 1, Milledgeville, Amboy. I forgot the final score, but it was
30-22.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be that good teams have too many good players that they're not going to allow 50 points no matter how good you are offensively. defensively is where it's going to be won and lost. And that's why your Amboys and Milledgevilles and that are going to be there at the end. That's why we always talk about in any football, those teams that play defense and can run the football. That's what when you were talking earlier about Pawnee with a throw in, here's what also happens when you're playing a team like a Milledgeville and you're a Pawnee and you're throwing. You go a couple incompletions, what happens? You take 20 seconds off the clock.
Right.
You give them another, and all of a sudden you look up and you're down 24-0 and you're still mid first quarter, right?
Yeah.
And then you start pressing and then you start doing things. That's what happens to teams that can't run the football when it matters. That's my take on it. You have to play defense in any good game, in any good championship game. And if they score that many points, neither are very good. It's like, that's how I look at it. I mean, you got to be able to tackle and play football.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I like you. I'm really excited on what Metro East Lutheran's doing. I am. I like what South Fork is doing. It just there's just I made the comment here this past weekend on another football page. I think it was Metro East Lutheran's football page. I was actually having a conversation with Bob, and I made the comment that I'm just not buying into it yet.
Right.
And my point is that while you see a bunch of people that are getting excited, me being the realist out of the situation, yes, I'm excited to see these teams play. I agree with you that this is going to be a great playoff, and there's a lot of intrigue and high expectations for what we could potentially see as we move into weeks 10 and 11 and 12. But with that, you have to see the defense, and the defense at some point has to be the factor. Now, in a 58-50 game, yeah, that was a great game, and I don't want
It's great to watch.
Yes, I don't want to take the joy out of that kind of game away from it.
Oh, I know. Right.
But I'm not sold on any of these teams yet. Because I've got to see Amboy and Milledgeville front and center play high caliber games. And it's not just from this year, it's from what we've seen them do the past several years.
Well, we've said it, and maybe it's a lazy approach, you could quote unquote call it, but until those teams continually beat the cream of the crop of the NUIC, that's going to be the narrative, right? Like, it's going to be the narrative of when the South has to play the North, and that's not taking anything away from the South. But you look at the last how many champions from the 8-man, who has it been?
Polo, Amboy,
and West Central.
Right. So, I mean, it's not a terrible take when you have that, and a lot of times, a couple of times, how many times was it NUIC versus NUIC in the final, right? And
well, in West Central, I had to go through the NUIC twice to get there.
Right.
Hey, and
actually 3 times.
Kyle, I totally 100% agree with what you're saying. I think the point I was trying to make was, say, you got the possibility this year of, say, a West Carroll sitting at a 12 seed, and like an FCW to 13 seed. My point is, that's not your typical 12 and 13 seeds.
No,
correct.
You know what I mean? Like, when this 8-man started, your 12 and 13 seeds might not be able to even get a snap off, is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, these 12 and 13 seeds, 14, 15 seeds are much better than they were 4 years ago, I think, is the point I was trying to make.
No, and I think me and Jay both agree with that as well.
No, 100%. You look at the mock map right now that's the 5 seed, South Beloit, Amboy. I mean, would it shock either? It would definitely not shock me if either made it to the championship game at Monmouth. Like, and that's a 5 seed coming out of there. You go down the list of the teams that are there. I mean, the 1 through 8 is loaded. And then even your, like you said, the 12 West Carroll could easily knock off 1 or 2 teams on the way there if they get the right
draw.
path.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think and just to wrap that up real quick, I think we all agree that this is definitely a higher caliber playoff that we're going to see in 8-man, which just
Right.
speaks volumes to what a lot of these teams like South Fork and Pawnee and Metro East Lutheran are doing right now. And, we were excited about St. Anne last year, and St. Anne this year still right there in the mix.
Mhm.
Right.
MCP is still in the mix. And while we can all probably make assumptions that perhaps St. Anne and MCP haven't had the toughest of schedules compared to other divisions right now, the fact remains that they're still there. They have had
Right.
cross-divisional games, and they're still sitting in a great opportunity to be 8-1, 7-2, whoever wins their matchup.
Right.
And it just adds more validity to how the 8-man game is growing. And in all honesty, that's the biggest thing, because the 8-man game is growing. And, Coach Hanlon said it great when he was interviewed last week ahead of the game here with Pawnee. And he said, the North has been dominant when it comes to 8-man football, and rightfully so. We, meaning the Southern teams, have to start. I mean, it's not what he said, but this is how I took it. The Southern teams have to start to show exactly what Jay was alluding to. You have to prove it in the big games in
Right.
order to start really gaining even more validity and putting your stamp on your name in the 8-man game as being a powerhouse.
Yep.
So
I would agree with all that. Yep.
let's take a look at our scoreboard. And right there it is. Last week, Milledgeville beat Orangeville 56-16. West Carroll beat AFC 70-8. Polo beat River Ridge 50-8. Amboy beat Ridgewood 62-12. And I remember stating something to the fact that, Amboy Ridgewood, I was hoping it would be a closer game. The spread probably was about what this game finished up being as well, but and me and you both stated last week, and I think Jay kind of agreed that we could see this game getting the way that it did. I guess secretively, I was just hoping Ridgewood would have a little bit more there.
Yeah, and guys, I've been talking about the Amboy defense all year, and mentioned this stat in the podcast. This just blew my mind. Guys, they held Gavin Franks, the running back to Ridgewood, to 27 yards on 23 carries. I mean, that is getting it done.
That's a 1,000-yard rusher too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you, and again, Ridgewood, Amboy and them, they've played here 4 times in the last 2 years. I mean, they know each other real well. Coach Payne and his staff, they know what Ridgewood's going to run. But still, you still got to go out and stop it. And boy, Amboy sure made us. To me, that was a statement there, holding Franks to, pretty much just over 1 yard per carry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at our Volkert Design Northwest standings. And right now, I mean, as far as the conference is concerned, Milledgeville is your conference champions because the rest
Yep.
of the games are all cross-division games. So they go 5-0 in this division, as everybody pretty much projected all year long. Polo 4-1, West Carroll at 3-2, Orangeville 2-3, River Ridge 1-4, AFC 0-5. Obviously, on the right side, you can see their overall records there. So not a
Hey,
huge surprise in that
yeah.
one.
Kyle, I think if we would have made a projection at the beginning of the season, I think it would have looked about just like that for the conference standings, don't you think? I don't
Yeah,
think that's a surprise to anybody right there.
I don't
That's
think so either.
probably what we would have picked. I would think.
The West Division looks like this. We still have a game to decide this, really, and that's in Week 9, Amboy West Central, as they both enter this week 5-0, and most of these teams still have divisional games remaining between this week and next week, so we'll see how this one shakes out. Still up for grabs, obviously. Amboy is still the front runner here, but West Central wants to stake a claim to it, and I can't see why they wouldn't be sitting there with mirrored records heading into that Week 9 matchup. FCW's at 3-2, Galva 3-3, Ridgewood 2-3, BPC and West Prairie at 1-4, and Peoria Heights is at 1-5. In the Northeast Division, we'll take a look at that one. And this one, too, is already wrapped up. So South Beloit is your division champion here. Alden Hebron is 3-1, Hiawatha 3-2, Christian Life 2-4, Harvest Westminster Christian is 0-5. I might be wrong on Alden Hebron, but I thought they only had 4 games in the division played so far. I thought I re-looked at that, but regardless, South Beloit is your division champion there. The East Division, we have Milford Cisna Park in St. Anne still sitting undefeated, matching records overall. They still have to play. Is that game this week or next week? It's this week, right?
That is this week is actually Thursday night, Kyle.
Oh.
So you can
sweet.
watch it on Thursday night.
Yes. Be able to get that one on because that's at St. Anne too, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So St. Anne will have their game broadcast on Huddle for anybody that wants to watch this game. So it'll be a lot of fun to see that one. Merdian
Actually,
St. Thomas.
I think that's an MCP, Kyle, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Well, if it's at MCP, then I believe they're on NFHS Network.
I think so, yes.
So either way, you should be able to watch this game, which is great. Meridian, St. Thomas More, Unity Christian all at 1-2, Blue Ridge at 0-3. And then we're going to go to that super fun South Division here. And you take a look at that one. And South Fork pretty much is already the division champion. I know they still have some games to play, but they're the front runner. They've already beat Pawnee and Metro East Lutheran. Pawnee and Metro East Lutheran still have to play to determine who's going to be the runner-up in that division, which is going to be fun. Martinsville's there at 1-2. They're still in the playoff picture. Oblong at 1-2 is also in the playoff picture, especially if they can pull off an upset. And then you have Pal Hutt there, who is winless on the season. So that gives you a look at our standings. Should be a lot of fun, but let's take a look at the first game of the week that we're going to talk about. It's Orangeville 2-5, traveling to Christian Life, who is 2-5. Last week, Orangeville lost 56-16 to Milledgeville. Christian Life lost to Hiawatha 54-6. Hayden Schofield, despite the loss, 28 attempts, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I've kind of taken my eyes off the Hayden watch at the moment, but we're going to get stuff back on there because I know there's a lot of comparisons between him and George Bailey right now as far as being the season rushing leaders this year. So that'll be interesting to see where those two now stand comparatively. Brock Comprud led the team with 10 tackles last week for Orangeville. While the score doesn't show it, Orangeville put up one hell of an effort in this game. And I feel that if they can continue to play the way that they did against Milledgeville and carry that into the coming weeks, it could set up an opportunity for them, not just to be in that playoff talk that we already have them projected in, but right now they are the favorite over Abundant Life in that Week 9 matchup to get them into that potential coin flip opportunity with Martinsville if it plays out that way.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like you said, Kyle, they played Milledgeville pretty tough. I know the final score won't indicate it, but that game was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. Milledgeville was up 20-0 at half on Orangeville, but you got to remember, Milledgeville, most opponents this year, they've been up 20-0 4 minutes into the ball game. You know, so for Orangeville to have the game plan, have the kids buy into it, credit to them. I love their matchup here against Christian Life. I just don't feel like Christian Life, they really haven't been able to stop anybody all year. I think Hayden Schofield's in for another big game here. And Orangeville, I think, keeps their playoff hopes alive here.
Yeah, keeping the playoff hopes alive. If you look at the first half that people won't see and being able to be there, 2 fumbles on kickoff returns, Milledgeville onsiding. Milledgeville got, and a block punt for a touchdown, and that was their first score. So to have all that go wrong and be down 0-0 at half and 20-0, that's you can't do those things against good teams, and that's kind of was the sediment of that, of very close to being there, but now they get to play Rockford Christian team where when we were talking earlier in the program or just talking off air, of the 5 losses for Orangeville is to the number 1, 3, 4, 6, and 9th ranked team in the state. So they hit the hard part of the schedule against some of the top teams, and now hopefully in the next 2 weeks they can play with some of that confidence to get to 4 and 5 and then see where the chips lay. But at 2 and 5 for any team, you have no way of going into a game thinking you're going to win. You got to do it on the football field, and we see that all the time where a team is supposed to win and they expect to win. They got to go out and earn it this week.
Hey, Jay, just to back up your point there, the 5 losses for Orangeville this year are those opponents are combined 31-4 right now.
Yeah,
it's
like one of those
lost to a bad team.
It's like it's a tough thing when you see the schedule comes out and then you see that and how it plays out. And some years it's not that way, but how it was put this year to where you see some others, it's a tough gauntlet. But again, in order to be a playoff team, you got to play with playoff teams, and some of those games weren't as competitive as what they should have been, and that's a Orangeville thing that they got to grow up. Young football team, still growing and trying to figure themselves out, but you had to win one of those games to be in. Now you're going to put it to either hoping some teams win or lose, or a coin flip if you are fortunate enough to win the next 2 weeks, and you put yourself in that position by doing it.
And Joe, if you go back to our preview show, even we talked about Orangeville. They could be anywhere from 4 and 5 to 6 and 3. So right now sitting at 2 and 5, but the next 2 weeks definitely get them into that picture where we originally identified them to be. And they still have the ability to make that final spot in the playoffs too. So that was really the biggest talk. We saw Orangeville as a potential team that could be in the playoffs.
Yep.
And they still have that opportunity right in front of their face right now.
Yep, I would agree. I like them big here over Christian Life.
I do too. All right, let's take a look. River Ridge, 2 and 5, goes on the road to Harvest Westminster Christian, who is 0 and 7. Last week, River Ridge lost to Polo, not beat Polo. They lost to Polo 50-8. Harvest Westminster Christian lost to Alden Hebron 37-20, which that was kind of a head scratcher. I'm not exactly sure what all transpired there. I figured Alden Hebron would have won by more, but regardless, they still get away with the win. For River Ridge, Caden Bauer was 4 for 14 passing, 71 yards, 44 yards rushing. Jackson Goldsmith had a 69-yard rushing touchdown. Soma Yoshida had 3 receptions for 66 yards. And Hamish Bowden, once again, leading the defense, 13 tackles on defense for Bowden.
Yeah, so I was able to call that River Ridge game against Polo, guys. And River Ridge kind of a little similar to the Orangeville-Millersville game. Polo was up 26-0 at half, which obviously that doesn't sound, the best if you're River Ridge, but River Ridge was down 20-0 and they had a 1st and goal on the 1-yard line, late second quarter, so they were that close to punching in there and making that possibly just a 12-point game going into half. Polo was able to stop them. I think there was a penalty and maybe a sack or whatnot. But I kind of felt like it was a little similar. Like, even though you knew the outcome of the game, River Ridge really put up a good fight against Polo on Friday night. Really the key to that one, guys, Caden Bauer, the quarterback, just 4-14, but Damon Rao, Wyatt Placknell, that Polo defensive line, Bauer just didn't have much time to even get his feet set a lot of times, so it was a tough night for him back there in the pocket. But again, I like River Ridge in this one here. And I think Alden Hebron you kind of said that score surprise. It sounds like they're pretty banged up right now. So I think that probably has something to do with that score a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully they can get healthy because obviously they're another team that we're hoping can do some damage here in the playoffs, and regardless of where they might draw at, they're going to have a tough road no matter what. But you want to see
Right.
them be healthy so that they can put their best foot forward at the same time.
Yeah, and you look at
Yep.
River Ridge's schedule, they got a chance to finish 4-5, which, for them to be how they started and the schedule that they had also, to finish 4-5, would probably be a good thing for them.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I like River Ridge big in this one as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
All right, West Prairie is 1-6. They travel to the Haba.
Your place.
The Haba. Number 2, Amboy, 6-1. West Prairie beat BPC 46-8 for their first win of the season. Amboy beat Ridgewood 62-12. Tanner Welch, 4 for 4, 136 yards and 4 touchdowns. And our player of the week this week is Cody Wynn, 4 receptions, 136 yards, 4 touchdowns on all 4 of those receptions, added 8 tackles on the defensive side of the ball. So great performance by Cody Wynn to help Amboy jump all over Ridgewood on this one. Obviously, a great performance by Tanner Welch as well, because ultimately he's got to get the ball to win to have those numbers. Jose Lopez, 10 attempts, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. Colt McCoy, 7 attempts,
My guy.
100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Your guy, Colt McCoy. Let's be honest, guys. There's really not a whole lot to talk about here. Amboy should run away with this one.
Yeah, I like Amboy big in this one again. Is we've talked about every week the way their defense is playing, and offensively they're getting contributions from everybody. Lopez, McCoy, Welch, Wynn, Caden Heath, you name it. They're getting contributions. So, Amboy playing well here as we get close to the playoffs here, and yeah, I like them huge in this one. Probably could be a running clock before halftime, guys.
Yes, agreed. We'll see if, yes. But just a tune-up game to get ready for West Central in Week 9 for that conference championship.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a look at our next games when we return right after this. Thinking about buying or selling a home? Trust the team that knows this area better than anyone. Best Realty. Whether you're looking for your first home, upgrading for more space, or relocating, Best Realty is committed to making the process smooth, honest, and successful. With deep roots in our local communities and a track record of results, Best Realty isn't just in the business of homes, they're in the business of helping families take the next step. Best Realty, local experts, real results, real people. Call today and move with confidence. If you or your loved one has been injured, you need someone who will fight for you. Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys have been serving our community for over 40 years, standing up for people when they need it most. They know how to handle the insurance companies and get results, so you can focus on healing. Don't face it alone. Call Reese & Reese Injury Attorneys today at 815-968-8851 and let their experience work for you. All right, number 9, Alden Hebron has to travel to Floyd Daub Field to play the number 1 ranked Missiles. Alden Hebron Olsha enters at 6-1. Milledgeville enters at 7-0. As we just got done talking about, Alden Hebron with the 37-20 win over Westminster Harvest Christian. Milledgeville beats Orangeville 56-16. Big game for Spencer Nye. 11 attempts, 117 yards and a touchdown. 5 receptions, 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then you throw in Evan Schenk, 10 attempts, 53 yards, 5 receptions, 102 yards, and 3 touchdowns there. Kyson Francis, another big game for the sophomore QB, 10 for 17 passing, 218 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then defensively, we've talked about him a lot this year, but Caleb Sarber, 11 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a fumble recovery.
Yeah, Jay, I'll let you talk about this game a little bit. You were there, obviously, so you know a little bit more than what I do.
Yeah, in watching the Milledgeville and playing both Milledgeville and seeing both on film, I not taking anything away from Alden Hebron, but Milledgeville beat you in so many ways,
Right.
and their defensive line just does so many things that I think at the end of the day will give Alden Hebron a ton of trouble. Um, Milledgeville can just beat you at whatever they want to beat you at, right? They can throw, they can run. They just are fundamentally sound, and they play hard for 4 quarters. And it's so hard to you talk about it, and you can talk about it to any team, in coaching against the Milledgeville team for many years. That's the one thing you could talk about all week of the physicality that they're going to play with and the effort they're going to come with until you see it up close. Um, it's hard to emulate in practice, right? You can talk about it, but what they bring and the team that they have this year, if they can stay healthy the next 2-3 weeks going into the playoffs and start playing good football, Milledgeville just does so many things that they're going to have to beat themselves to lose. And in this game, and like I said, seeing both teams, Milledgeville is just a step above Alden Hebron in every facet of the game. I
Yeah, and
think I think you could see easily a running clock by halftime.
yeah, and guys, I keep hearing Alden Hebron not quite healthy too. They got some key
That's
guys
the other that's the other
dinged up
thing,
right now, and I know beginning of the season they had some guys sick the first couple weeks, and now they got some Caleb Linneman, the running back, being one of them. He did play some here this last week. But yeah, for Alden Hebron, I think this is more just about, um, getting healthy and,
survive and move on.
Yeah.
yeah, they're a dangerous team if they are healthy in the playoffs, so I think the key for them is get through this one, work on some things that you can work on, and just go from there.
You don't get to 6-1 by just not playing good football,
Right.
right? They're 6-1, but
Oh yeah.
their loss came big, as we talked about, to South Beloit. And that's where, like, my head comparison, you see how they play against the South Beloit, who is, I would say, freakishly talented. They are, and people that underestimate them are going to find out what type of football team they are, and
Right.
they got that the talent here, off in the middle. Milledgeville is that. Sometimes you would say times two with what they bring to the table. So, and they're battle tested, right? The thing that you're going to worry about South Beloit is they have the talent. Are they battle tested and fundamentally sound enough to not have some of the penalties that you can't have in the playoffs, right? When if you lose, you don't have next week, you lose and go home. And that's where
Right.
Milledgeville has been there, and they got to that point last year, and now they're focused to getting back there. That's when sometimes you see a team that you're not expecting to maybe peak a year early. How do they play in the playoffs? And that's where Milledgeville is there, and they've had their sights set on Monmouth since week one.
Yep, I agree. I like Milledgeville big in this one. And them to get to 8-0.
And like you said, injuries are tough, and knowing that they have the injuries, that's where I see why it's going to be a difficult task for Alden Hebron this week.
I agree. I like Milledgeville big here as well. Our next game takes us to Kirkland, where the Hiawatha Hawks come in at 5-2. They are going to play host to the number 3 ranked Polo Marcos, who enter at 6-1. Obviously, Polo with a big win over River Ridge last week that we've already mentioned. Hiawatha beat Christian Life last Saturday, 54-6. For Polo, Mercer Mufford had himself another day. 12 attempts, 166 yards, and 2 touchdowns. JT Stevenson, 7 attempts for 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. What really stands out to me about Mumford is how quickly he is climbing the ranks of the rushing list for missing weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's had some big runs here these last few weeks. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Milledgeville's been the only team that has even remotely, stopped him. They did a great job. They stuffed him. But no one else has even been able to hold him to under, I don't know. I think this might be his lowest game other than Milledgeville, 166 yards. So, He just has good vision. He sees the field, and once he gets to the outside, it's just like he's got another gear. So he does some things that you can't really coach, if that makes sense. Polo, nice win last week against River Ridge. They're 6-1. Guys, Hiawatha here sitting at 5-2. I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of Hiawatha, but they're 5-2. They're going to be a playoff team.
Every time I look, they're playing Christian Life.
I'm just going to say, I think my biggest, right now their signature win is Galva, so in week 1, 26-22. So again, I'm not taking anything away from them. They can't control their schedule. It's not their fault, so you got to just win the games that are on your schedule, and Hiawatha's done
Right.
that. So not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying I will be able to see them in person on Friday night against Polo just to kind of get a true feel for them, to see where they're at here going into the playoffs. Because they got Polo, then they got West Carroll week 9. So they're going to have a tough road here these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and what Polo, they got to do is sharpen things up. You get a River Ridge game last week, expected to win big. They won big. Maybe not, like you talked earlier, the cleanest first half, but they got the win. You want to see them play a really clean half game this week against Hiawatha, setting up a big week 9 for them.
Right.
You can't have a letdown. You got to play sharp, because week 9, is going to be one of the biggest games of week 9 in the scheme for me of seeing where Polo's at and South Beloit is at.
Yeah, totally agree there. Good thing for Coach Kenny McPeak, obviously, turning a 2-7 program into a 5-2 program, going to the playoffs this year, continuing to build off of what former coach Jason Kenaway was trying to build at Hiawatha. While it may not have the wins against the notorious teams like Jay said,
that was just a joke. They wasn't beating anything.
They had to play the game. No, but they had to play the games.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately,
and they had to win.
Yeah, unfortunately, you get teams on your schedule and they forfeit or they do stuff, and you can't. You want to play somebody. The unfortunate part is when you can only find 1 or 2 teams that you can do. That's what you do. But it's like what they need to do. Hiawatha needs to do in this game is rally the troops to Polo's overlooking us. We got to get ready. They're in the playoffs already. In the next 2 weeks, they're going to play Polo and they're going to play
West
Carroll. So it's like you're going to get 2 playoff games in the next 2 weeks to see what you got to work on for that first round matchup.
Yeah,
and that's what they got to be. That's what you got to be thinking if you Coach McPeak there. That's where you learn what you are and what you got to work on.
Well, right. If you go back to week 5, that matchup with South Beloit, they didn't get clocked.
No.
They held tight with them.
34-14.
Yeah.
I think that game was 14-8 at half too, guys. So they hung with South Beloit.
Yeah.
So
over if they're able to play at that level, who's the state that they can't do the same thing against Polo? And this could be a complete surprise from where it's projected. Right now it's projected Polo's a 34-point favorite. We'll just get that put out there right now, because tomorrow morning when you see all my posts come out, you're going to see it.
Right.
By the time you're hearing this, you'll already see my projections. But either way, Polo's a 34-point favorite. And I don't know. I think Hiawatha can hang around, but I do. Polo is Polo. Polo's Polo. And they have been, and they will be until somebody can prove otherwise, which we have yet to see since 2019 when they joined IFA.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about our Prairie State game of the week when we return right after this. When it comes to planning for your future, you want someone you can trust. At Prairie State Investments, Mark Pfeiffer is here to help you build a plan that fits your life, your family, and your goals. Whether it's retirement, college savings, or investing wisely for tomorrow, Mark has the knowledge and local commitment to guide you every step of the way. Don't leave your future up to chance. Call Mark Pfeiffer at Prairie State Investments today at 815-668-8131 and start investing with confidence. All right, our Prairie State game of the week takes us to South Beloit, where the number 5 Sobos are going to play host to number 6 West Carroll. The Thunder enter with a 5-2 record. The Sobos are perfect at 5-0. Last week, South Beloit won 38-8 over Abundant Life, the second time that they've met up this season. West Carroll beat AFC 70-8. The interesting thing about South Beloit Abundant Life is Abundant Life scored the first touchdown of the game, and then South Beloit put up 38 unanswered on them. What we did find out in some research this week, and I reached out to Coach Radeski as well, their starting quarterback, unfortunately, has been injured for the past couple weeks. So they've been playing with a backup quarterback. I don't know how much of an impact. I'm assuming it has a pretty large impact, because when you take a look at the top 3 scoring leaders for Abundant Life, the quarterback is the third person on that list. And he kind of runs the offense both at the quarterback position, but also in the running game as well. So, regardless, South Beloit beat them earlier. They beat them again, this time more convincingly as well.
Yeah, nice win for South Beloit here. And again, it would have been real easy for the Sobos to look past Abundant Life, with these 2 big games coming up against West Carroll and Polo here to finish out the regular season. But, they got some guy, Chase Harrington, 13 carries, 101 yards and a touchdown last week. Cam Meister, 4 for 72 and a touchdown. J.C. Scober, just a sophomore, 9 for 32 and 2 scores. And Caden Cook, 2 catches for 43 yards. So, again, South Beloit, plenty of guys that can get the job done offensively. And it's going to be a tough cover here for West Carroll for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Scober is a sophomore. I mean, when you watch that kid play, he's a big boy.
Yes, he is.
Holy cow. And then you add that to, like, Daniel Winterland, who's another big boy. And then, like Jay said, you got the 2 receivers in Meister and Cook, who are just athletic. They're tall. They're physical. This is a game that there's a reason why this is game of the week, because the matchups in this game are going to be huge.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it two ways to me. South Beloit's going to make their mark in the next 2 weeks. West Carroll has to make their mark this week. And that is what we all talk about. Quality of win, quality against a win against a quality opponent, right? West Carroll has not done that yet this year. They played some teams tough, but early on in the season, they lost to a Polo team, right? They rattled off some wins they should have won. They get South Beloit this week, and then they get Hiawatha next week, right? So their big win that they need to have is this week for South Beloit. In my head of things, it's like, okay, South Beloit in my head should win this week. I think they're probably the better team. They need to get past this game, and then their signature win, if they want to put a signature win in this year, would be week 9 at versus Polo. Yeah, that it's like one of those things. It's like them beating West Carroll, who's 5-2, and you're 7-0. You beat them, well, you're 7-0, they're 5-2. Great win, but now let's see where you're at with the Polos and the Millagevilles and the Amboys of the world that everyone talks about, and that's where South Beloit has to get through this week. Play sharp, sound football. They like I said, they got talent upon talent, and they can hit you. And then then it sets up a huge week 9 that I think anybody and everybody would like to watch South Beloit and Polo. And you'll get a front row seat to that, Joe.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Hey, Kyle, so do you know the status of the quarterback for South Beloit, Landon Reed?
I don't know. I have not heard anything.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Anytime you lose a quarterback, it's big.
Yeah, that's a huge deal there. So, again, South Beloit, plenty of playmakers, but, Landon Reed is somebody who obviously makes that offense go. So that'll be interesting there for sure. And Kyle, we'll touch more on this here in a few minutes when we get to our playoff projections. But the other thing here is West Carroll, they lose this game, they're going to be on the road in the first round. They win this game, then they're almost going to assure themselves a first round home playoff game. So,
And that's big.
Huge game here for West Carroll as far as playoff seeding. You're talking jumping possibly 4 spots, if not 5 spots, from where they're projected currently. If they can get a win.
By the way, I just want to throw this out. I don't know if Landon Reed is hurt. I was talking about the quarterback for Abundant Life, if that's where you were going.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Landon Reed.
No, Abundant Life
I
quarterback.
misunderstood.
No,
I'm sorry. My mistake, folks.
But
My mistake.
Rewind.
Yeah. But yes, this was probably, realistically, it was probably the most inefficient game Landon Reed had was this week.
Yeah.
But clearly they didn't really need the passing game this week either, by the way that they got done with things against Abundant Life. But yeah, looking at the stats that he did have, he completed the 2 passes to Cook, and that was all he had. I think he was 2 for 10 passing this week. So it wasn't an efficient game that we're used to seeing out of him. So, but again, they only threw the ball like 10 times. So they spent a lot of time on the ground game this week, which shows up in the stat line as well. And then by the way the game played out, I'm assuming they had short fields as well. I did not watch the tape on this one yet.
Well, and it's one of those things, like you said, West Carroll controls their own destiny of what they want to do in the playoffs. You lose this game and you play away, you set yourself up for a tough road. Somehow you find a way to win this game, and then you win week 9, 7-2. South Beloit, let's say, would lose this game, and then they lose to Polo. They're 7-2, and you own the tiebreaker. So that it's such a
huge swing.
It's such a huge swing when you're at this, and everybody, and people have tough games coming up. That, again, how I look at it, West Carroll, this is their signature win if they want one this year, to put themselves in the best position of a home playoff game and winning the head-to-head against South Beloit. And for South Beloit, this is where the next 2 weeks you show if you're in position to be one of the top teams in the state. Because the top teams in the state win these games.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we've talked about. The Thunder want to be a team that is talked about. And we've talked about it on this show a few weeks ago about, the Thunder are starting to prove that they at least are creeping into that conversation. They're not there yet, but they're getting themselves into that conversation. And when you take a look, I know people argue about the ratings, and here's the thing with the ratings. Yes, they are just completely that. They're computer driven. What people have to understand is that the rating system cannot compute that you won by a running clock unless your score differential at the end of the game is by that running clock differential. So,
Right.
for instance, that game where they had a running clock put on them by Milledgeville, they still played to a 26-point differential.
Mm-hmm.
And Milledgeville beat Polo by a 22-point differential. So, realistically, there was a 4-point differential between their 2 final outcomes when you just take score for score.
Right.
And then on top of that, those 2 competed head-to-head in a very tight game that was a 10-point differential. That's why West Carroll at 5-2 is above so many other teams right now.
Right.
Because that's what it sees.
The computer don't know.
The computer does not know that they got their butts handed to them by Milledgeville.
That's the difference between your projections and computer projections.
Right.
Because it's like, that.
Correct. So, likewise, I put the ratings out there because it's just, it's great analytical information to take a look at because it's a living, breathing document. So every week it changes. Right. And what people also don't understand is it's comparing you not just against the teams that you play, it's comparing the teams that you play against the teams that they play. And that's how it spreads out. So if Polo beats Milledgeville, hypothetically speaking, by 10 points, and Polo then beats West Carroll by 40 points, but then Milledgeville and West Carroll, Milledgeville beats West Carroll by 50 points, it's still going to see that West Carroll beat Milledgeville, or West Carroll beat Polo, Polo beat Milledgeville, and it starts to convolute that information. It's like, well, crap, maybe that 40-point differential wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe that was just a one-off game, because clearly playing against other competition, it pulls it together. And
You get all that, Joe?
Yep. We're having a quiz on that at the end of the show, Jay.
I just think in one of Kyle's rooms, if you ever see those like documentaries or whatever, he has like needles everywhere with yarn everywhere. That's how I picture Kyle's like weird bedroom that's off the living room.
that is not true. That's just this basement right here.
Yes, that's his. Well, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I know me and Logan touched on it earlier in our segment too. It's not me picking your teams.
Oh boy, don't get into
and
this
stuff
Kyle.
like that. I honestly, it's one of those things. I don't care who wins and loses. At the end of the day, I'm going to be at the state championship game, so I don't care. All I care about is I like good football, and I like reading into the numbers based off of what we see number-wise and based off of what we can see eye test-wise as well.
Yeah, mine is normally 90% eye test.
Right.
It's like if you and you see a lot of teams and you see a lot of teams, Joe, and you're like, okay,
Yep.
and you have good teams, right? And here's what another thing computers can't say. You play against a team that they get up 40 or they do things. Let's not even talk 8-man, because someone will get butthurt about us talking against an 8-man team that runs up a score or don't. Look at how Lee Wynn plays football, right?
Yep.
Lee Wynn plays football in Coach Iran. They get their 40. Everybody's out. Let's get the hell out of here. Let's play football. And one of the things is they don't get battle tested sometimes, and that's the thing. But he has his way of that they do it. Come playoff time, locked and loaded. They're playing different
Right.
way. Get it. You'll have some teams that'll have a good team, and all of a sudden they'll get up 40, and instead of calling the dogs off, they're throwing flea flickers and Hail Marys and doing stuff, and they win by 60. And all of a sudden the
Right.
computer will see, well, they're winning by 60. Lena's only winning barely by 40 or 30, but it was running clock. The eye test knows
Mhm.
that Lee Wynn's going to be there at the end. You don't get bonus points winning by more,
No.
right? So those are things like a computer will see, but us sitting here talking and being like, yeah, they're legit. They have once they get it, they pull the dogs and they move it, and other teams are different. So that's things that we see that you can put in a computer and it don't see.
Right. And also, I mean, there is a cap to it too. So let's say you win by 60 or you win by 40. The computer caps it at a 40-point win. So you could win by 20 more points. It does not care about that. But it's like the situations like I brought up, the West Carroll Milledgeville.
They got 40 points.
That was 40 pointed, but
At half.
it doesn't show it. So
Well,
anyways,
it's you could talk about a lot of different games that probably turned out like that this year, So
yeah, and you can see it in the scoreboards. You can.
And how certain teams play and how certain teams other play affect into it. And, at the end of the day, it's like, you know who your good teams are and who's going to be there.
Anyway, we
Right.
kind of spewed all over this.
Oh, we went you were all over the place with your,
I was.
Hey,
with your,
all right, hey guys, I'll get us back on track here quick. West
Joe, get it.
Carroll. Here's what I would like to see for West Carroll. I'm picking South Beloit in this one by maybe 8-10 points. I would like to see West Carroll give the ball to Aiden Buckholz 25 times and try to control the clock and keep that South Beloit offense off the field. I think that has to be the game plan for West Carroll here. Don't
That's
outthink
the one.
yourself here. Don't you think, Jay?
I think
I mean, I think he
if
should
they can
touch it
run the
25
football,
times.
yes, if they want a chance to win, they have to keep, and we talk about this with certain teams. You have to keep South Beloit's offense
Yes.
off the field.
Yes.
They are so explosive that, and that's one of the things you want to see if they've taken the next step. One of the things that you will see, I think, if you play a team, and that's why I know in watching polo they'll do this. They will take away their strength
Mhm.
and try to make them take part two of what you want to do, right? So, and
Mhm.
that is they want to score quick, they want big plays, they want all of those things, and they've been successful doing it. They're 7-0. What West Carroll needs to do is just slow the game down, make
Yep.
it that
Right.
first quarter, second quarter, and South Beloit's going to see that, I guarantee, in week 9. It's if West Carroll can do it in week 8 for
Right.
a shot to win,
Yep.
and limit their possessions. You have to limit their possessions because South Beloit's too good.
Yep.
Right
And the
here.
other thing,
Keep it
West
simple.
Carroll, yeah, West Carroll, they seem in these bigger games, guys, to have key penalties, key turnovers at critical times. You know,
Yep.
and I know it just sounds like a coach talk or whatever, but it just seems like that's.
You
I mean,
see it.
yeah, I've heard Coach S talk about it. It's not a
Yep.
secret. You know,
Yeah.
so this is what I would consider a big game for them. 7-0
It's a big
South
game for
Beloit.
both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take little away from South Beloit's 38-8 win,
Right.
because they had that game after that. It was 8-0. They rattled off, a bunch of points, and yeah, they didn't get a 40 point, but they got what they did. And I take 0 out of West Carroll beating
AFC.
AFC 70 to
Right.
8. It's going to come down to South Beloit versus West Carroll, and if South Beloit or West Carroll can move the football and keep South Beloit at limited offensive possessions. If they
Yep.
have bad penalties, turn the ball over, give South Beloit the ball a lot, it could get out of hand. If they don't do that, then West Carroll has a chance.
And likewise, defensively, West Carroll has to be able to play fast and seal off the edge, because if they don't, Harrington's going to get outside. And I don't think
Exactly.
there's anybody fast enough on West Carroll's team to catch him in the open field.
Right.
So you have to
Well-
play smart. They got to play sound fundamentally. They have to be able to seal the edge. Most importantly, they have to play 1/8 football, which means you have to take care of your 1/8 of your responsibility.
Right.
Because the minute you try to take on somebody else's responsibility, there goes Harrington right by you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this has potential to be a classic. I really think it does. This should be a fun one. And
I think it's going to be really close or South Beloit by a lot.
yeah, like Jay, you
that-
said, though, South Beloit, they can score in one play in a hurry. They got that capability. They got that big playability.
They have
and
guys
they're not
that are
just
just fast.
yeah, they're not just relying on one guy for that big play either. So
No, they spread the
I'm
wealth.
picking South Beloit here. But this is a good barometer game for the Thunder here. I'll be interested to see how this one turns out. But I'm gonna say the Sobos by 8 here in this one.
I agree with you. Buckles needs to have more carries. He's got to be the
Got
workhorse.
to.
Has to be the workhorse. He's got to want the ball, and he's got to inflict that pain and will. It's time to show what those muscles can do, because he's a big boy and he's tough to bring down, but he's got to bring it. West Carroll is a 3-point favorite going into this game. I do like South Beloit in this game. They're my pick to win as well. All right, let's take a look around the state at big games across the top 10. South Fork has a 75-point favorite over Pal Hut.
There's your 70 pointers.
I don't know if that game will play out to that per se, but that's what the edge is. So South Fork winning big. Number 7 Pawnee at Edwardsville to play number 8 Metro East Lutheran. Pawnee enters this game as a 3-point favorite. But there again, when you start taking a look at score comparisons and how teams played, they both lost to South Fork. Metro East Lutheran was in that game head-to-head where Pawnee just got exploded upon. Coach Talley and his crew for the Indians are going to have to do something different this week in order to stop a Metro East Lutheran team and the likes of Abe Oberhauser and company there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way this Metro East team's been putting up points all season, and a little concerned about Pawnee, Kyle, after last week giving up all those rushing yards to Bailey and company there. I 2 weeks ago I was picking Pawnee in this one, but I've changed my mind. I got Metro East winning this one.
What?
Well, 2 weeks ago we had Pawnee as a 1-2 seed.
We did. We did.
I think psychological, whatever. It's one of those things to get beat by the pass with some big passes down, right? Like how that feels, but just to get gashed, getting ran at.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder where Pawnee's head's at this week against the Metro East team that's been putting up points in bunches like we talked about. Yes, I think defensively they gotta find some things because they can't give up how many they've been getting. But when you're putting up the points they're doing a lot of things right. And where is Pawnee's head at after not being able to stop the run? In one of the biggest games in the state last year, and then it got moved to a Saturday night to even bigger, and then to have what it had happen, you wonder where they're at, and you're going to find out what your team's made of this week if you're Pawnee. You're going to see if they're a contender this year. If they come out and they take care of business, okay, we're back on track.
Exactly.
If they have a lapse, then that's going to be telling for them when it matters in the playoffs.
Well, and Kyle, I think you probably agree with me. My projections, this would be a difference for Pawnee. They win this game, they're probably going to be the 4 seed. They lose this game, I got them as the 8 seed. That's a big difference. Now, granted, it's still a playoff game, home playoff game for Pawnee, but a big difference in the 4 and the 8 seed. There really is.
It's huge.
Likewise for Metro East, they don't have near the playoff points, Kyle. So for them, this is the difference between a home game and a road game in the first round if you're Metro East.
This week.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think looking at and talking about our playoff projections, I think our playoff projections are mirrored this week.
They're real darn close. I think the only difference we have, Kyle, is our game coming up here, number 10 St. Anne at MCP, the Thursday night game. For some reason, I'm picking MCP. I can't put a finger on. I know you got St. Anne.
You're not sure why, but you are.
Yeah. So, yeah, St. Anne is an 18-point favorite coming in this game. Oh, by the way, let's go back to that last game. I got Metro East Lutheran winning that one. I got my hands on Coach Cook and his team getting that upset win, if you want to call it an upset.
It could be a long game.
It could be. It's
because they're going to both may score a lot.
Yeah, it could be.
Either way, it should have a lot of fireworks and explosion to it. This one will too. St. Anne at MCP. Number 10, St. Anne, has to go down to Milford. St. Anne enters as an 18-point favorite. Like you said, Joe, the winner gets home field advantage. I do have St. Anne picked to win. I'm sorry, Coach Schwartz. I do.
Yeah, I'm hooking up with Coach Rude this week. Coach Schwartz, the quarterback Dirk Newcomb here. For some, I don't know. I just got this feeling about MCP here. So
you know what? I like the quarterbacks on both teams between Grant Pomeranski for St. Anne.
Pomeranski's good too.
Yeah, I know. They're both great guys that can run their offenses at a very high efficiency, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the downfall I do see is, yes, MCP relies a lot on the running game by Newcomb.
Right.
Likewise, the absence of Chris Link has shown to be a big thing for St. Anne this year, as Pomeranski has gone to the air more, similar to what Pawnee has with the absence of Carson Wart. Right. And while Quentin Thompson is the running back for St. Anne, not to be mean or anything, but Quentin Thompson is not Chris Link.
Right.
I mean, he's a good, suitable running back. So, I mean, it's good, but Chris Link ran for over 2,000 yards that last year, and we're not even close to 1,000 yards yet for St. Anne on the ground. So, again, you have to be able to establish a run game because obviously, like all things, and Jay, you talked about it already, run games control pace, they control clock, time of possession, and not only that, but we haven't touched on it yet. But when you can run the ball, you literally take the will out of the team you're facing.
The psychological
Right.
advantage that you have when you line up and just run at somebody and you fall forward and they're on their ass backwards getting it. That it is such a advantage that you just wear them out, wear them out, wear them out. We see that in any type of football game. The line of scrimmage and the running back falling forward compared to the running back falling backwards is the tail of the tape. I just think that it's one of the first times I've seen a winner and a loser, and you get 18 points on this one, Joe.
Yeah, about that.
You're rolling the dice on this
And-
one.
And it's a Thursday night, guys. The whole state can check these two teams out. Thursday night game. So
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I
you know,
think
I'm
there's a
hoping to
lot
be able
of
to catch
high
some of this. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I'm picking MCP here, and with the upset. So we'll see what happens.
and then upset it is. I'm taking St. Anne.
All right.
All right. FCW at number 2 has to travel to Peoria Heights. FCW projected to win that one, 46
Point favorite.
point favorite in that one. All right, Joe, let's go into your playoff projections here.
All right. So, as you said, Kyle, we're pretty much almost on the same wavelength here. Really, the only thing I think we might have different is the MCP St. Anne game here the rest of the way out. So, I got 1 seed Milledgeville taking on either Martinsville or Orangeville. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Right now, I got that last seed being decided as a coin flip. 8 seed Pawnee hosting number 9 seed All in Hebron. Then, Kyle, we also agree on this. Right now, we got Amboy and South Beloit in a coin flip for the 4 and 5 matchup, or 4 and 5 seeds there. So whoever would get the 4 seed would have them hosting the 13 FCW. And whoever get the 5 seed between Amboy and South Beloit have them hosting the 12 seed West Carroll. Moving the other side of the bracket, we got South Fork as the 2 seed. Real good shot to finish 9-0 for the Ponies, taking on the 15 seed Kirkland Hiawatha. I have the 7 seed MCP taking on 10 seed West Central. That'd be a fun first round matchup. I got Polo at that 3 seed hosting 14 Ridgewood, and round out the bracket 6 seeded Metro East, projected 8-1 hosting 11 seeded St. Anne. So
as you can see, my bracket's already up on the screen there.
Yep.
And you're right. That's the only difference we have is
Right.
our 7 and 11 seeds. So there you go. That's the difference between the St. Anne MCP game as we see it right now is who wins that game will be the 7 seed, who loses will be the 11 seed. If things play out the way that they do currently.
Yeah. Now let me throw in a couple games here, Kyle, this week that we haven't touched on yet that there's potential that could change this bracket. Games we haven't really talked about yet. Martinsville 3-4 taking on 3-4 Oblong. Now, do I think Martinsville's going to win the game? Yes. But Oblong technically not out of it yet. It's nice to see a team like Oblong, a team we haven't talked about all season, we don't know a lot about. But they're sitting at 3-4 right there, just like Martinsville. Oblong, they played Pawnee tough, Kyle, a couple weeks ago. Again, I'm picking Martinsville. But again, just maybe one to keep an eye on. And then the other one, speaking of teams that are looking for a revival, Galva at 3-4 hosting 3-4 Ridgewood, guys. So the winner of that most likely in. Both teams have favorable matchups week 9. The loser is out. So 3-4 Galva hosting 3-4 Ridgewood. Guys, those two, Ridgewood, Galva, Cambridge, only 20 minutes apart. Probably an old rivalry from back in the day. Kind of, again, I'm picking Ridgewood, but Galva with a chance here to get a signature win. As I mentioned in my podcast, Kyle, biggest game in Galva football since 2018, last time they made the 11-man playoffs. So
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun for sure. Galva, obviously, they have to win this one, like you said, because they don't have the playoff points to get in at 4
Right.
win. But a
Yep.
win this week, whew, man.
Yeah, Kyle, like I said, I just want to throw those 2 games out there, games that we won't be on a lot of people's radars, but could have definitely affect, you know. And it's nice to see teams like Oblong and Galva still be alive at this point of the season because they haven't been in that position for a while.
Yeah, the biggest thing in looking at the maps is a week ago we were looking at a lot of teams over, looking at the bracket to the right, and it was
Mm-hmm.
you seen Polo, and it was everybody but Milledgeville. And now you look at it, and it kind of played out what you had mentioned, that if this win, Amboy, Milledgeville, and that are on the left side, and Polo is the
Yep.
3 seed with South Fork the 2 seed.
Yep.
And how like 1 week changed all of that. And we'll see
Well,
more change coming forward. But I would say if you're a want to stay away from Amboy, Milledgeville.
Well, that's just it. A Milledgeville loss is going to throw them on that right side of the bracket because they're going to finish no lower than the 3 seed.
Yeah.
right.
So
Well, and here's the other thing, guys. Pawnee beats Metro East. Pawnee moves back up to the 4, and that bumps South Beloit and Amboy back down 1 spot. So that could bump Amboy back to the 6 if they lost that coin flip with South Beloit.
which is shocking that Amboy would be a
6 seed.
6 seed.
Yeah, but it seems like every year, guys, that 6 seed is strong. Last year it was Milledgeville. Polo's been in that spot a couple of times. It just seems like that 6 seed's always strong for whatever reason. I don't know what the formula is, but
Because they're coming
the
out of
6
one of the better divisions, but they
Right.
just don't have the playoff points to be higher up, having the 1 loss. And that's really
Yeah.
what it comes down to, because the way that we have it divisioned off now, which, don't get me wrong, when we, a couple years ago, when it was just a north split, south split, I think having the 5 divisions now has been nice.
Right.
And we get a lot of cross-divisional games between the Northwest, the West, and the Northeast, and then down south you have the South and the East divisions crossing paths. But it goes back to what John Lawler has stated multiple times. He would like to get more of those Southern teams involved into the 8-man teams.
Right.
And there's a lot of teams down there. I look at the Lincoln Prairie Conference. It's arguably one of the worst conferences in the state of Illinois, not named Chicago Public League. And there's some teams in there that are Arcola had to go with Cerro Gordo at the last minute because both were struggling with numbers.
Right.
And the thing is like Arcola is one of the winningest programs in state history.
I think the unfortunate part is you still have people that have this like weird pride of we have to
play 11
man. And
Right.
you've seen it, we've seen it, Kyle's seen it up close. The intensity, the kids getting an opportunity to play football is still there in 8-man as 11-man. And I will never be one to understand the fact of putting your kids in a bad position because of your bravado of we play 11-man and let's just try to make it worse, to where in the 8-man world you can play with and we've seen it, because everybody hears a grumbling. Well, they got 40 kids out, right? But it's like there's a difference. But you can play football and compete with a 40 kid roster and a 20 kid roster, and you're competing with 8-on-8, and it's still good football,
Right.
whether how it is, because you can't control, like you've heard the arguments both ways. Well, they didn't have much. They went to 8-man, and now you have 35, 40 kids out. Well, you can't just keep switching back and forth.
No.
You got to make a commitment.
No, you can't.
The smart people understand that. The other people do not. and we'll just leave it there. But
Yeah.
it's like, in
That's a whole nother podcast, Jay.
yeah, that's a whole nother
that's-
pod.
I'm glad you bring it up because
after the
actually
season.
that's the direction I was going in anyway.
Yeah, I got you, Kyle.
I know.
But it's one of them things. It's like, well, let's just co-op because I don't want my kid to play 8-man football. He's got to play 11-man. It's like, well, I coached 11-man, and if my kid wouldn't have been able to play football 11-man his senior year, and we were right on the cusp of that, my kid would still be fine. And nobody asked. Nobody asked in college or when you're at work,
Hey,
what football did you play? You know,
Yeah, it's never cost you a job interview. You know,
No.
oh, you only played 8-man football.
So you like the job? You've only played 8-man.
Sorry, we're gonna hire this other guy.
He played 11-man football. You know what it's all about. You know, America. You know, something like that. It's like that. But you have that. Like, and I think that's where it's at. You look at a conference like that. You look at, I mean, how fun is it getting beat 60-0 each week?
It's not.
I like, you know, it's not about wins and losses. We'll go with all of that stuff, but it's about at least being able to compete. And you know, I look at own experience with the teams we had, and we've had some good 8-man teams, some teams that haven't played well, but you know, last year, this year, the year after, you know, 4-5, 5-4, a state team. Like, those kids got a great experience and they got to play the game of football. What's always funny is it's like, we need more guys. We need more guys on the team. It's, you know, you hear all that, and it's like, I always go back to the 2019 Lena football team that we had to play that had like a guy you're playing over at Iowa that is one of the top players in college football. They played like 13 kids. Like, 2 guys would go out on offense and 2 guys would go out on defense. And they had 50 kids on the sideline, but 13 kids played. It's like, it has nothing to do. The best 11 play just like the best 8 play.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, 8-man football is great. 11-man football is great. Nobody cares after you graduate what you played and what you did. That needs to be a question in a job interview. What football did you play?
I'll see if I can add it. I'll see if I can add it to my list.
Add it to your list and see if it affects anybody.
The only job it could affect is if Kyle's got to start hiring people for the NUIC football. I mean, that might be on that job interview, but you know, hey.
Yeah, well, he asked me to help, so his criteria is very low. So he does not have high criteria for getting on.
I just like having great conversations like this. You know, the last couple of years I ran this by myself, talking to myself.
He was answering his own questions half the time. You know, just looking around, hearing voices.
So, guys, let's get back to this playoff thing here. A couple things I want to point out here. Let's go to that 16 seed. Right now, Kyle, you and I both have Martinsville, Orangeville projected 4-5. Projected both 48 playoff points. That would be a coin flip for that last spot. Now, there's a few things that could alter that. You know, let's say Milledgeville lost their Week 9 game to North Shelby, Missouri. Orangeville would lose a playoff point. Let's say that Duggar, Indiana team that was on Martinsville's schedule loses their last game of the season, which is this week. You know, Martinsville loses a playoff point. So there's definitely some things that can take it out of a coin flip. But the first things first, you know, both those two teams do need to get to 4-5.
Yeah, that's 100% what has to happen, because if they don't get there, then it's going to bring somebody else into the picture. And when we take a look at that picture, you know, you're looking at a River Ridge, a St. Thomas More, a Galva. Yeah. None of these teams are out of it per se yet.
Correct. They still have stuff to play for. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And I also don't want to discount Martinsville Week 9 playing South Fork. You know, now obviously South Fork's gonna be a heavy favorite in that game, but Martinsville's still a very talented team. You know, so
Gabe Griffin's put up big numbers. Aiden House,
but they're a team that can score points.
Yeah.
You know, so, but again, Martinsville Oblong this week is kind of a sneaky game there where I guess you never know. Maybe Oblong pulls the upset there. So who knows? but we'll just have to wait and see what happens here. But that's what we're looking at for our 16 seed right now is Martinsville and Orangeville on a coin flip. So that would be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I haven't showed my table of contents. Obviously, you see it and Jay sees it, but it'd be interesting if I threw that up here one of these days just to show people what that all looks like. And
Yeah.
Because some of these people they don't understand how the seedings work.
Right.
And you see it all the time. I've seen it on the 11-man side like 3 different times just today alone. Like, why is Camp Point Central ranked lower than Calhoun when it comes to the playoffs? It's like, 1, it's not a ranking, it's a seeding. There's a difference.
Yep.
2, it goes off of your opponent's wins. But obviously people are trying to understand it, and I try to have information available so that they do understand it more, but it's hard for them to always understand because
Right.
they don't do it on a regular basis like
Well,
what
and
you do and other people
right,
do.
and you gotta remember every year you got new groups of, say, parents coming in, Kyle, that,
They've
a
never
lot of
been
these
through
people
it.
don't a lot of these people don't follow it till their kid gets to their junior year, which I get,
Yep,
that's fine.
I 100%
So
agree with you.
there's always new people coming in trying to understand, again, not everyone follows it like we do. So,
Kyle needs to do an NUIC tutorial beginning of every year.
Well, actually, so Susie put on, gosh, what was it? It was last year, I think. He had an episode for Friday Night Drive, and it was literally like a 3-hour show, and he was literally going through every game, every win, step by step on how the seeding process worked.
I don't think you
wow.
got to go that far.
I'm not
we don't
going
need 3
that
hours
far.
of that.
No, I'm not going that far, but I definitely give Susie a lot of credit because that guy digs into it at a much larger and deeper level than I even do. And, it's one of those things where he's been involved at so many different levels when it comes to, hey, we want to do a district proposal. How does that look?
Ugh.
Well, we go to Susie and he starts putting stuff together, or like right now, the new
Right.
proposal out there is to go to a regional flex schedule format.
What do you think of that, Joe?
I gotta be honest.
2 minutes or less on each guy. What do we think? You're first.
I gotta be honest. I don't have enough information on that to even comment. I did see our group text today had about 150
Sorry,
responses.
Joe.
No, that's fine. I've been busy. I work and then I coach junior high basketball. Does anybody work, Kyle, in that group text?
Yeah.
Jeez.
We all work.
Jeez.
We all work. We just
No,
find
but
time.
seriously, I don't really have enough information or understanding yet to comment. I'll be honest. I really don't.
I think when you're trying to get 2 and 5 and 3 and 6 teams into a playoff, I think that's when you lose luster for what playoffs are. And that's what makes
Yes.
football so special. Of if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And we live in a world right now where nobody wants to tell someone, well, you didn't play well enough this year. And it's okay, right? It's okay to
Right.
play a season and just you and your friends got together, played some football, and you weren't good enough to make it. And that's where we've gotten away with sometimes you're not the best football player and you're not the best team. And that's okay. But now it's
Well,
like we want to open it up for everybody.
Well, and let's be honest, guys. If there's one sport where you're having a losing season and you're 3 and 6, you're ready for that thing to be over. I'm sorry, you just are. You're ready to be done.
Well, and you're going to put a 2 and you see the lopsided games you get with a 5 and 4 versus 9 and 0.
Right.
What are you gonna get with?
All right, so
Okay, here we go.
Let me put my 2 minutes of information in here. It might take a little longer. So the big misnomer right now is that it's going to be a 2 and 7 or a 3 and 6 going up against a 9 and 0. That's not the case. Basically, what they want to do is have a first round bye. So let's, right now we see that 1 through 16 north and south. Only 7A and 8A go 1 through 32. So 7A and 8A, the top 16 seeds get a first round bye. In the lower classes, the classes that we cover, it'd be 1 through 8 and 1 through 8. North and South would get a first round bye. The other teams then would play in a play-in game. So you could have a 3 and 6 going up against a 5 and 4 to play for that play-in game to play into the next round.
I get it.
Right.
I'm just saying you're still gonna have that 2 and 7, 3 and 6, playing a 5 and 4 to go play a 9 and 0. And I get you're trying to like get some like,
but there are some 9 and 0s out there that aren't true 9 and 0 teams.
I understand that, Kyle.
That is true.
And there's some, and we're going to be told the same thing. There's some 2 and 7 and 3 and 6s that aren't 2 and 7 and 3 and 6s because of their location.
Well, that is true.
That is true.
But
So,
I think to what you're saying is those situations are far and few.
They're very
between.
few and far.
well, it's like anything when you're talking this or politics. It's like you want to give the 1 percentile of the crazy happenings, and that's the thing. It's like for me, it's just like what makes it special is that not everybody gets in and everybody gets a part of it, and that's what you play for, and that's what you're trying to accomplish.
I agree. And
I was one that
I'm more of a traditionalist.
When
I'm
it
just
was-
trying to keep an open mind. For
I know the open mind, and you play 8 weeks, and then it's like other people that aren't very good can fill the week 9 with another 1 and 8 team or it's like if you're 1 and 8 or 0 and 9, I guess you schedule the week 9 against somebody, and then you're playing all over, and that's the other, because I remember it coming, and they didn't pass it when one of my last years, but I remember seeing the email, and it was like, well, then these teams will play, and they'll get a play in to play the 9 and 0, and then if you're 0 and 9 and a couple 0 and 9s, you guys can play each other to try to win that game, and it's like, okay, like, or 0 and 8, I guess
Yay!
and it's like at that point, like you said, Joe, those basketball shoes are already ready, and they're
Yeah.
shooting hoops at 0 and 8. Like, you really want to play, your 9 games now, and you got 9 games.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so now we got to try to find a game for week 9. And you'll see more teams. You'll see more of the 0 and 9s and 0 and 8s and all of them just say, yeah, we're done. That's what you'll
Well, yeah.
see.
And it doesn't hurt for these kids to have a break once in a while either. I mean, let's be honest. Everything's year round anymore. So,
Well, you also
only-
got to take a look at the other side of it too, because right now there is a lot of conference jumping going on, and in a lot of areas we don't see it up here because we do have a great conference, and there's more teams that are wanting to join our conference than there are people that are leaving. Like the only one that's leaving is Dupec, and they're leaving because.
But they're only leaving for football.
Yeah, they're only leaving for football and wrestling and soccer. But that's because they have that co-op, and the NUIC doesn't have a bunch of soccer teams, but the Big Northern does. And wrestling, maybe it's not even wrestling. Maybe it is just soccer and football. But
They don't co-op in wrestling?
no, they do co-op in wrestling. I don't think they're leaving for wrestling. But
That's a whole nother pod.
yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But there's other schools that have. I mean, we watched this happen with Tuscola. Maroa Forsyth is a great example. They've been a good team for so long that their original conference dissolved. Some of them went into the Illini Prairie. Some of them went into another conference, them in Tuscola, and then that dissolved. So now Maroa Forsyth sitting in Decatur, and every game they got to go to is all the way over by Springfield or past, because nobody in the Decatur area wants them in their conference.
Right.
St. Teresa went through the same problem as well. Tuscola's been through the same problem. Now Tuscola has found a home in the heart of Central Illinois, which is more centered to where they're at. The other teams from that old OCAW created what is now the Illini Prairie. But when it comes down to other sports, that's where you got to start to look at it. Like football is the main driver between a lot of these conference shiftings because of the opportunity to get into the playoffs. But now you're putting other sports on the road in a weekday game going 2 hours away. Me, I don't care, but I can understand the argument.
Well, I get it. Football is probably the only sport that you can say that for, but because you're only playing once a week,
Right.
and you can play on you're playing on a Friday night,
Right.
where you don't have to get it and have school the next day. The issue I have with some of it, it's like, you play a AFC or you got to go to a East Dubuque. It's like, I look at my AD when he makes it a Tuesday or Wednesday night. It's like, dude, I'm in bed by 8:30. It's like, make that a Friday or Saturday game. So we, and kids have homework and all that. So it's like, it does. But I mean, we live so close to the Wisconsin border. I pay attention a lot to the Wisconsin. The state comes in and beans there a whatever open enrollment, like recruiting, public schools get hit with dividers and they get moved up, and they came in and did they did districting with enrollment and everything like that. I mean, a lot of these schools travel 2 hours to go play regular games, because they're trying to do it by enrollment. That's how they do it. I know, talking to some people from Judah, they got to travel all over for basketball. You talk to Monroe's playing, and they're getting moved again because they, and the issue is they don't punish them when they're winning. They punish them after they win. So then the kids who weren't even part of the winning,
are the ones
that get punished, and now they're moving to a different conference. And now it's like, they're getting it pretty good now, and they're going to get it, in the next coming years, because they got moved because of success. And it's just like, that's why I just hate seeing state step in and trying to change things, and, conferences and schedules and everything like that. It's like, this ain't a bad thing. It ain't a bad thing to have it. But again, we play at a different area, to where you have schools that can't find a conference, schools that are locked in, that they're playing schools that are 2-3 times bigger than them. And, they're trying to make it fit for everybody.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. And I mean, yeah, you can do the comparison in other states. Texas has a lot of travel in Texas.
Texas has a lot of things going on.
But I mean, and that's abnormal, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm just trying to keep an open mind. I think this thing is by far
pass first.
I think this is the best proposal that's been put forward, because it's not truly districts, it's a flex regional, which means that you could have like-sized schools, or you could have that school that's a 2A school be in your region, if that so fit what you guys want to do. So there's opportunities, I guess, to look at it in different avenues. I don't know. There's been a lot of conversation around it today. Anyway.
And when's the proposal that it comes out that it could change?
I don't know. I got to take a look.
Yeah. That's always something.
Hey, guys, the other thing on that, depending on how, let's say something like that did pass, well, then all of a sudden you could maybe see some teams jump to 8-man if they didn't like where they landed in that proposal too.
Well, and that's what it all boils down to.
It's a possibility that could force a few teams into 8-man.
Right.
Possibly. I'm just saying, it's out there.
It is. No, there's definitely there are. And when it comes to the 8-man game, I want to see the 8-man grow, because I have really come to love the 8-man game, because one, like we've already talked about, it provides opportunities to keep your team together for your school, playing for your pride, your town, your community. It gives your kids the opportunity to continue playing football in what is the most special time, Friday Night Lights. It's got its own name. We don't. The only other sport that has a name is March Madness for basketball.
Yeah.
Friday Night Lights is every Friday night in the fall, man.
Yeah. Kyle, I bet you and me could probably name 10 teams if we wanted to right now that we think should go 8-man. Now, these schools may not think that, but
that's another pod.
That's another podcast. Exactly.
We'll get a graph up.
Kyle, we got to have another podcast, you, me, and Jay, where we just talk about whatever.
We can do it whenever you want. We don't even have to have a name
for it.
Yeah.
We can do it whenever you want.
Yeah.
How about Kyle and Kyle's gibberish with Jay and Joe or something like that. I
There
don't
you
know.
go.
Yeah, we'll just take on big hitting stuff. But I'm sure a lot of people will be mad because they'll be like, we'll just put pictures up on the wall and we'll grab one and no,
Yeah.
but that's the thing about it. It's like like what Kyle just said, the opportunity to play and do that. And I don't think people understand if you have kids involved in the fall in football, volleyball, others, and other activities in your school, the camaraderie of the school, everything with the school, I think is more upbeat no matter what you're
Right.
doing, homecomings, everything like that is. When you have a school that has nothing to offer and you don't have involvement from the kids is when your school takes a drop in a lot of things. And you need to have those things and kids involved in winter. You want them involved in basketball, wrestling, things like that. In the springtime, baseball, softball, track. The more you can get kids involved in something to play for, the more they're going to be involved in your school, and the opportunities. And it's not always about wins and losses. It's about seeing that kid who didn't maybe put the time into himself now puts the time into himself to learn what hard work is and things like that. That'll get it when he graduates. It's like when you have a bunch of kids that don't. And I'm not saying because everybody's like, well, my kid's not a sport kid, right? But it's like, well, get involved in something, do something,
Right.
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's like how many kids would go to another do it because I don't think they involved if you're not the home for the co-op. How many kids are going to go? And then those kids, what the hell are they going to do?
Right.
And that's what nobody thinks about. They think about my kid, my thing, and everything like that. It's like I've always said, make sure your kid and his kids' friends go to the weight room and make themselves the best players they can be. Everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. It comes down to you just gotta be wanting to compete.
Yep. Make sure they show up because half the time the people that complain I've found in my experience, so nobody take offense to it and like
No.
write about, well, my kid does and blah, blah, blah. But it's like 90% of the time, it's like the people that do that a lot of times worry so much about that. Their kids have less than a 50% weight room attendance. They have a 50% this and they're finding ways to get out of this or that. It's like, dude, just make sure your kid shows up and has responsibility for that and his friends show up
I
and
agree.
everything will take care of itself.
I agree 100%.
Because if it gets that bad that you can't field something, it will be taken care of.
I hate. I don't get me wrong. There are coaches out there that play favorites, but at the end of the day, I see so many more coaches that their favorites are the ones that do what's expected, and when you get into the real world, it turns your favorite employees are the ones that do what's expected. The ones that
Right.
want to try to get out of stuff are the ones that you try to avoid, or you have to discipline, or something. I mean, let's be honest. Life is nothing but competition. We're always competing
Right.
in something. So anyway, yeah, this took a different path, but
Yeah, we went in Kyle's back room on that one.
But anyway, great conversations. Obviously, we talked about a lot in the 8-man circle, but we did dive into some of the talkings with the recent proposal put out, which will affect a lot of schools. My thing is, as a school voter, you have to get your coaches involved, find out what the best route is for your school, and vote that way. And that's all you can do. The rest of it will play out. And when it plays out, you can't be upset with it as long as you did what you did was right for your school. So that's it.
I'm ready for the West Carroll South Beloit game.
Yes.
Yep. And
my
Pawnee Metro East, guys.
Big
That's
game.
my
Yeah,
game of the week.
And St. Anne and MCP. We got a lot of big games this week.
Big games. Big games. 3 big games.
And then ready for week 9.
Yeah.
Oh.
Those 3 really going to alter the playoff projections, though, possibly, Kyle. So it'll be fun to see where this shakes out for sure.
Yes. And don't forget, we do have our playoff show. Not this weekend. Next weekend, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. live on YouTube. So get out on YouTube, search NUIC football, hit the follow or subscribe button. That way you get notified as soon as we go live. Going to be a lot of fun. These two guys are going to be on the show with myself, along with Greg Armstrong from View from the West. We're going to have coaching interviews on there. We've already got a great group of coaches coming in. We got a few more coaches that we're going to reach out to yet to see if they want to come onto the show, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Taking a little bit of a different view from what we've done in years past, but it's going to be more extensive with more feedback from other coaches. Going to be a ton of fun. Tune in. Arguably the best small school coverage when it comes to playoff Saturday around the state. I hear all the complaints about the IHSA stuff because a lot of the focus is on the Chicagoland area, and I get it. You want good small school football talk, tune into our show.
Yeah, what will be the topic this year? Last year was your top 5.
I don't know. You're the one who
Yeah, I came with
generated that,
that.
so you're going to have to generate
I'll
another
come up with something.
conversation piece.
My conversation piece. Maybe what team should go 8-man? There we go. What team should go 8-man?
Let's stay away from that one for now. We'll do that separately. But yeah, come up with something fun.
We'll
That
come up with
is
something, Kyle.
definitely geared towards the playoffs. So maybe it's something about our favorite playoff moment. I don't know. Either way, always fun. So I already know what Joe's is. 2022.
21.
Yeah,
Got the years off by 1.
I was off by 1. That was a great game.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, get out to the games, support your teams. As always, root for the NUIC. We'll see you next week.